Most people have never heard the full story of the Archangel who walked among humans in disguise, performed miraculous healings, and guided lost souls to safety. Yet, his tale is one of the most beautiful in all of Scripture. Tonight, let the gentle voice of divine storytelling carry you into restful sleep as we unfold the complete narrative of Archangel Raphael. You'll witness his extraordinary journey through the book of Tobit, discover why he's known as the patron saint of travelers and healers, and learn how this mighty angel continues to watch over us today. But before you get comfortable, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Also, let us know where you're watching from and what time it is. And let us know if you have any suggestions to improve the content. We'd love to hear from you. So without further ado, let's begin, shall we? In the beginning, there was silence. Not the silence of empty space, but something deeper, a holy quiet that held all possibility within itself. This was before stars learned to shine, before planets found their paths, before time itself began its gentle march forward. Picture this vast stillness. No wind moved because there was nothing yet to move through. No light flickered because darkness had not yet been named. In this sacred pause, the divine presence dwelt alone, complete and perfect in ways we can barely imagine. Yet even in this silence, there was movement. Not the movement of things traveling from place to place, but the movement of thought, of will, of love preparing to create. The mind of God stirred with visions of what would be. Angels waiting to be born, worlds ready to spin into existence, life eager to begin its journey. This was the moment before the great speaking, before the first let there be. In this holy hush, plans took shape for messengers who would carry divine love to every corner of creation. Among these planned beings was one whose very name would mean healing, whose touch would bring comfort to the suffering, whose presence would guide travelers on their longest journeys. The divine architect saw it all in that timeless moment, saw the need for those who would stand between heaven and earth, carrying messages of hope, saw the wounds that would need tending, the lost who would need finding, the broken who would need mending. And so, in this quiet before creation, the blueprint was drawn for beings of pure light and love. These beings would not be bound by flesh or limited by time. They would move between worlds as easily as thoughts move through the mind. They would serve as hands and voice for the one who made them, bringing divine presence to places that seemed forgotten or forsaken. In this stillness, their purposes were set. One would be the warrior, standing firm against all that would harm creation. Another would be the messenger, carrying news that would change the course of history. And one would be the healer, whose very essence would restore what sickness and sorrow had torn apart. The hierarchy was simple and beautiful. At the center, the divine presence, source of all light and love. Around this center, rings of beings, each with their own gifts and callings. Some would tend the throne itself, like singing praises that kept the universe in harmony. Others would venture far from home, carrying divine love to the farthest reaches of what would soon be created. This order was not about rank or power in the way we might think of such things. It was about purpose, about the perfect fitting together of gifts and needs. Like instruments in a great orchestra, each had their part to play in the cosmic symphony that was about to begin. The silence held its breath. Creation was about to explode into being. Light was preparing to chase away the darkness. Time was ready to begin its steady beating, like a cosmic heart that would rhythm through all the ages to come. In this moment before the first moment, everything was potential. The healer whose story we will follow was there, waiting in that holy quiet, ready to take his place in the grand design. His wings were not yet spread, his voice not yet raised in song, his healing touch not yet extended to the wounded. But he was there, complete in divine thought, perfect in divine love. The stillness was ending. The great work was about to begin. And from this quiet birth, wonders beyond imagining were about to unfold across the vast canvas of creation. The birth of light and spirit. Let there be light. 3 simple words that shattered the cosmic silence and set eternity in motion. Light burst forth, not gradually like a sunrise, but instantly, completely, filling every empty space with radiance beyond description. This was not the light of stars or fire, but the light of divine presence itself, pure and alive and warm with love. In that moment of first creation, something else was born alongside the light. Beings of spirit took their first breath, opened their first eyes, spread their first wings. The angels came into existence not as we might imagine birth, with pain and struggle, but like thoughts becoming real, like songs taking form, like love putting on garments of light. They appeared perfect from the first instant, each one complete in their nature and purpose. Their minds awakened already filled with knowledge of their Creator, their hearts already burning with devotion, their voices already tuned to sing the harmonies of heaven. They needed no time to grow or learn or mature. They simply were, and they were magnificent. Among them stood one whose name would echo through ages of human history. Not the mightiest or the most radiant, but steady and sure, with healing flowing from his very presence, like warmth from a gentle fire. His face held compassion that had never known hardness. His hands carried power to mend what was broken. His voice spoke comfort to hearts that had not yet learned to grieve. These first moments were filled with discovery. The angels looked around themselves with wonder, seeing the light that danced through their being, feeling the joy that bubbled up from their created hearts, understanding without words the roles they were born to play. They were messengers, guardians, servants, friends. They were bridges between the divine and what would soon be a material world. The light continued to pour forth, taking new shapes and forms. Stars began to kindle in the vast reaches of space, each one a lamp lit by divine breath. Galaxies swirled into being like great wheels of fire, their arms reaching out to embrace the darkness and fill it with beauty. Planets formed from cosmic dust, each one unique, each one holding potential for wonders yet to come. Through all this creative explosion, the angels watched and learned. They saw how light brought order from chaos, how divine will shaped reality from possibility, how love expressed itself in infinite variety. They understood their place in this unfolding drama. They were not creators themselves, but servants of the Creator, helpers in the great work of bringing life and light to every corner of existence. Some angels were given charge over the stars, keeping them burning bright through the long night of space. Others were set to guard the planets as they cooled and formed, watching over their slow transformation from balls of fire and ice into worlds that could cradle life. Still others were prepared for a different calling, one that would bring them close to beings not yet made, creatures who would walk on solid ground and breathe air and know both joy and sorrow. The healer-to-be felt this calling stirring in his spirit. He sensed the future need for his touch, the coming wounds that would require his care, the prayers for help that would rise from worlds not yet born. His purpose was becoming clear, not through words or commands, but through the deep knowing that comes from being created for a specific work of love. The birth of light brought with it the birth of time. Moments began to follow one another in orderly sequence. Past and future took their places on either side of the ever-moving present. The angels, who existed beyond time in their essential nature, learned to move within time when their missions required it. They became masters of both eternity and the temporal, able to step into history when needed and return to the timeless realm of heaven when their work was done. As the first day of creation drew to its close, the angels gathered to offer their first song of praise. Their voices blended in harmonies that made the stars tremble with joy, that sent waves of peace through all the newborn worlds. This was not worship born of duty, but of love, not praise commanded, but freely given. The light that had burst forth that first day continued to shine, would always shine, carrying within itself the presence of the Creator and the promise of all good things to come. The angels had found their home in this light, their purpose in this cosmic symphony, their joy in service to the one who had loved them into existence. The seven who stand before God in the highest reaches of heaven, where light becomes music and music becomes prayer, seven beings took their places before the throne of the Most High. These were not ordinary angels, though all angels are extraordinary by earthly standards. These seven held a special honor, a unique calling that set them apart even among the countless hosts of heaven. They stood in a circle around the divine presence, each one representing a different aspect of God's interaction with creation. Their positions were not random, but carefully ordered, Each angel placed exactly where their particular gifts could best serve the cosmic plan. Like rays of light streaming from a single source, they carried divine power and purpose into every corner of existence. Michael stood with his sword of light, the protector, the warrior who would never know defeat. His face showed strength that could not be shaken, resolve that could not be bent. When darkness threatened to overcome the light, Michael would be there to push it back. When evil raised its head against the innocent, Michael would be their shield and defender. Gabriel held a trumpet that could wake the dead and a scroll that carried news to change the world. The messenger, the herald, the one who spoke for God when words needed to be heard by human ears. Gabriel's voice could be gentle as a whisper to comfort the afraid, or thunderous as a storm to proclaim divine judgment. Every word Gabriel spoke carried the authority of heaven itself. Beside them stood Raphael, the healer, whose very presence brought wholeness to what was broken. His hands glowed with gentle power. His eyes saw not just what was, but what could be restored. While Michael fought against evil and Gabriel announced divine will, Raphael worked to repair the damage that sin and suffering had brought to creation. His was the ministry of restoration, of making things right again. Uriel burned with the fire of divine justice, seeing clearly through every deception, illuminating truth wherever lies had taken root. This angel's gaze could penetrate the deepest darkness, expose the most hidden corruption, bring clarity where confusion reigned. Uriel was both terrible and wonderful, bringing fear to the guilty and comfort to those who loved truth. Raguel stood as the one who held other angels accountable, ensuring that heaven's messengers remained faithful to their calling. Even among the perfect beings of heaven, there was need for oversight, for someone to watch and make sure that divine commands were obeyed completely. Raguel's presence reminded all created beings that responsibility comes with every gift and calling. Remiel carried the burden of divine judgment, the one who would someday gather souls and present them before the throne for their final accounting. This was not a cruel calling, but a necessary one, for justice delayed is justice denied. Remiel's work ensured that every wrong would be made right, every tear counted, every act of love remembered and rewarded. Sariel watched over the spirits of those who transgressed, working to bring correction and restoration even to the fallen. Where others might see only judgment, Sariel saw possibilities for redemption. This angel's ministry proved that divine love extends even to the rebellious, always offering another chance to turn from wrong and choose right. These seven did not work alone or in competition with each other. Their ministries wove together like threads in a cosmic tapestry, each one supporting and completing the work of the others. Michael's protection made space for Raphael's healing. Gabriel's messages prepared hearts for Uriel's illumination. Raguel's faithfulness supported Remiel's justice. Sariel's mercy balanced divine righteousness. They moved through heaven with perfect coordination, like dancers who had rehearsed together since the beginning of time. When one was sent on a mission, the others adjusted their positions to maintain the divine order. When all seven were present before the throne, their combined worship filled heaven with such beauty that lesser angels wept with joy just to witness it. Each of the seven carried authority to act in God's name, to speak with divine voice, to work miracles that reflected heaven's power. Yet they used this authority with perfect humility, never for their own glory, but always for the good of creation and the honor of their Creator. They were servants first, mighty beings second. Their very existence proved that God's love for creation was not distant or abstract, but personal and involved. Through these seven, divine care reached into every need. Divine power touched every weakness. Divine wisdom guided every confusion. They were proof that heaven noticed what happened on earth, that prayers were heard, that help was always available to those who called upon the name of the Lord. Among these seven mighty ones, Raphael held his place with quiet confidence. He was not the warrior or the herald, but he was the healer. And in a creation wounded by rebellion and marked by suffering, the healer's role was perhaps the most needed of all. Raphael's name and meaning. Names in the divine realm are not mere labels, but living realities, expressions of essence and purpose that shape both being and destiny. When the Creator spoke Raphael into existence, the very syllables of his name carried within them the full scope of his calling and the complete power needed to fulfill it. Rapha, in the ancient tongue, means to heal, to restore, to make whole again. But this is not healing as we might imagine it in our limited human experience. This is healing that reaches into the deepest places where brokenness hides, restoration that touches not just body but soul and spirit, wholeness that encompasses every aspect of being. The L that completes his name means God, the Almighty, the source of all power and authority. So Raphael's very name declares God heals, or the healing of God. He is not a healer who works apart from divine power, but healing power itself made personal, given form, sent forth to touch the wounded world. In some traditions, scholars have traced his name through different languages and found it meaning friend of God or God has healed. Each translation reveals another facet of his nature, another aspect of his relationship with both creator and creation. He is simultaneously the divine remedy for human suffering and the compassionate friend who understands our pain. The power in his name is not magical or mystical in the way we might think of such things. It is the power of divine nature expressing itself through created being. When Raphael acts, God acts. When he speaks comfort, heaven speaks. When he extends his healing touch, it is the very love of the Creator made tangible and real. This name was not given after his nature was observed or his deeds were done. It was spoken at the moment of his creation, defining who he would be before he had performed a single act of healing. His identity was established not by what he accomplished, but by the divine intention behind his existence. He was born to heal because healing was needed in the cosmic plan. The Hebrew letters that form his name carry their own meanings, creating layers of significance that depth upon depth. The ancient rabbis taught that names were prophecies, that they revealed not just who someone was, but what they were meant to become. In Raphael's case, his name was both description and commission, both identity and calling. When spoken in prayer, his name becomes an invocation, a calling upon the healing power of God to manifest in specific situations. Throughout history, those who have known his name have called upon it in times of illness, injury, and spiritual distress. The name itself carries comfort, as if the mere speaking of it brings something of his presence to those who need it most. The sound of his name is gentle, flowing like water over stones, soothing like a lullaby sung by a loving parent. There is nothing harsh or demanding in it, nothing that frightens or intimidates. It is a name that invites trust, that offers hope, that promises better days ahead for those who have known only darkness and pain. Different cultures have shaped the pronunciation slightly, but the meaning remains constant. In Latin, he becomes Raphael with rounded vowels that echo in cathedral spaces. In Arabic traditions, he is sometimes called Israfil, the one who will blow the horn of resurrection. Each culture has found in him something that speaks to their deepest needs for healing and hope. The mystics have spent centuries contemplating the significance of his name, finding in it keys to understanding divine compassion and power. They see in Raphael a bridge between divine intention and human need, a personal expression of God's desire to see creation whole and healthy and happy. Parents throughout history have given their children variations of his name, hoping to invoke his protection and blessing. Raphael, Raphael, Raphaele, the name carries the same promise, that healing is possible, that restoration is real, that broken things can be made whole again. His name appears in ancient texts with reverence and hope. It is written on amulets for protection, inscribed in prayers for healing, spoken over the sick and the suffering. The name has become synonymous with hope itself, a reminder that no condition is too desperate, no wound too deep, no brokenness too complete for divine healing to restore. To know his name is to know that healing is not just a divine possibility, but a divine promise. To speak his name is to acknowledge that behind all the pain and suffering of this world stands a love that will not rest until every tear is dried, every wound is healed, every broken heart is made whole again. The first healing. Long before human feet walked upon the earth, before the first flower bloomed or the first bird sang, there was need for healing even in the perfect realms of creation. Not all wounds are born of sin or suffering. Sometimes, even in paradise, Gentle care is needed to nurture new life into fullness. The story begins with one of the younger angels, newly created and still learning the ways of heaven. This being, radiant with fresh glory and eager with untested wings, had been exploring the outer reaches of the divine realm where new stars were being kindled into existence. The work was magnificent but dangerous, requiring steady hands and experienced judgment. In enthusiasm that outpaced wisdom, the young angel ventured too close to a star in the process of birth. The cosmic fires that bring new lights into being are not malicious, but they burn with intensity that even angelic nature cannot endure unchanged. The explosion of creative force that marks a star's first moment of life caught the inexperienced angel in its brilliant embrace. The light was too pure, too concentrated, too direct. It did not destroy. Nothing in God's presence can truly destroy what God has made, but it left the young angel stunned and dimmed, like a candle that has been blown by wind, too strong for its flame to bear. The radiance that should have shone from angelic features was muted. The songs that should have flowed from angelic voice were silenced by awe too overwhelming to process. Other angels might have offered comfort or sung songs of encouragement. Some might have carried the wounded one to places of rest, where time alone could work restoration. But Raphael approached with different understanding, different gifts, different purpose. He saw not just the dimming of light, but the potential for light renewed. He sensed not just the silence of shocked amazement, but the songs waiting to be reborn. Where others saw a problem to be solved, Raphael saw an opportunity to express the divine nature that was his very essence. His touch was lighter than morning mist, gentler than a mother's hand on a sleeping child's forehead. But in that touch flowed power older than the stars, love deeper than the cosmic deep, healing that worked not by force but by invitation. He did not push or pull or demand. He simply offered, and healing flowed like water finding its level. The restoration was gradual, beautiful to witness, natural as sunrise. The dimmed radiance began to glow again, slowly at first, then with increasing brightness until it shone even more brilliantly than before the encounter with the newborn star. The silenced voice found its song again, tentatively at first, then with harmonies richer and more complex than they had been before, the overwhelming experience. But the healing went deeper than returning what had been lost. The young angel discovered that the encounter with such pure, creative force had actually expanded angelic capacity for understanding and wonder. The temporary dimming had made room for greater light. The brief silence had prepared the voice for more beautiful songs. This was Raphael's first great work, and it established the pattern for all his healing to come. He did not simply repair damage or restore what had been taken away. He transformed the experience of wounding into opportunity for greater wholeness, deeper wisdom, more profound joy than had existed before. The other angels watched and learned. They saw that healing in Raphael's hands was not just restoration, but transformation. They understood that his touch could take even the painful experiences of created beings and weave them into stories of greater beauty and stronger faith. Word of this healing spread through heaven like light through crystal, reaching every corner of the divine realm. Angels who had witnessed it spoke of it with reverence and wonder. Those who had not seen it longed to understand the mystery of healing that made all things better than they had been before. From that first healing forward, Raphael's reputation was established. He was the one to call when restoration was needed, when brokenness required mending, when any created being needed the touch of divine love made manifest in healing power. The young angel who had been healed became one of Raphael's most devoted followers, not from obligation but from gratitude that had been transformed into love. Together they would work in ages to come, the healer and the healed, bringing divine restoration to every corner of creation that called for it. This first healing was like a seed planted in the garden of eternity, growing into a tree whose branches would shade the suffering throughout all the ages to come. It was proof that no wound is too strange for divine love to heal, no brokenness too complex for divine wisdom to make whole. Earth beckons. From their place in the highest heaven, the angels could see it forming, a small blue planet spinning slowly in the darkness of space, third from a young star that warmed it with golden light. Earth was different from other worlds. Where most planets were harsh or barren, this one bloomed with possibility. Where others were silent, this one sang with the whisper of wind and the rhythm of waves. The Creator's attention was focused here with special intensity. While other worlds received their share of divine care, Earth was being prepared for something unprecedented. This would be the stage for the greatest drama of creation, the making of beings who would be like God in their ability to choose, like angels in their spiritual nature, yet bound to physical bodies and limited to a single world. Raphael watched with growing fascination as layer upon layer of preparation was added to this chosen world. Oceans formed to cradle life. Continents rose to provide dry ground for walking creatures. Atmospheres wrapped the planet in protective embrace, filtering harsh radiation while allowing gentle warmth to reach the surface. The process was slow by earthly time, but instantaneous by heavenly measure. Days passed like heartbeats in the divine rhythm of creation. Light separated from darkness. Waters gathered into seas. Dry land appeared, ready to receive its covering of green, growing things. Then came the explosion of life itself. Not the simple existence of stars and planets, but life that moved and grew and reproduced itself. Plants pushed through soil toward sunlight. Fish swam in the new oceans. Birds took flight on wings that had never known the joy of soaring. Each new form of life was perfect in its own way, fitted exactly for its role in the grand design. The smallest flower was as carefully crafted as the largest tree. The humblest insect was as much a work of divine art as the most magnificent whale. Every creature found its place in the web of relationships that made Earth a living world rather than merely an inhabited planet. But all this was preparation for something greater. The angels could sense it in the Creator's attention, in the special care being taken with Earth's development, in the way divine love seemed to be holding its breath in anticipation of what was coming next. The other angels watched with interest, but for Raphael, something deeper was stirring. A recognition, perhaps. A sense of calling that reached toward this small world spinning in its cosmic dance. He felt drawn to Earth in ways he could not yet fully understand. There was something about this planet that spoke to his healing nature. Perhaps it was the way life here would be more fragile than in heaven, more subject to damage and decay. Perhaps it was an intuition that beings made to live on this world would know kinds of suffering unknown in the perfect realm of heaven. Or perhaps it was simply that love calls to love, and Raphael could sense the tremendous love that was being poured into Earth's preparation. This world was not being made as an afterthought or experiment. It was being crafted as a home for creatures who would be beloved beyond measure, who would need care and guidance and, inevitably, healing. The special attention Earth received was making some of the angels curious about the Creator's plans. What kind of beings would inhabit this carefully prepared world? What would make them different from angels? What role would heaven's messengers play in their lives? Raphael found himself wondering about more practical questions. If these new beings would be subject to harm in ways that angels were not, what kinds of healing would they need? If they would know pain and sickness, how could divine love best reach them in their suffering? What would it mean to bring heaven's healing power to a world where bodies could be injured and hearts could be broken? The preparation of Earth was also preparation for the angels who would serve its inhabitants. Each day of creation was like a school lesson, teaching heaven's messengers about the world they would soon be visiting, the creatures they would soon be helping, the kinds of problems they would be called upon to solve. As Earth neared completion, the sense of anticipation in heaven grew stronger. The angels could feel that they stood on the threshold of a new chapter in the cosmic story. Soon they would no longer be observers of creation, but participants in it, working directly with beings who were like them in spirit, but unlike them in so many other ways. Raphael felt his healing gifts stirring within him, preparing for new kinds of service, new challenges, new opportunities to express divine love through restoration and wholeness. Earth was calling to him across the vast reaches of space, and he was ready to answer. Tobit and the World of Exile. The great kingdom of Israel had fallen. Like a mighty tree cut down in its prime, the nation that had once been blessed above all others lay scattered to the winds. The Assyrian army had swept through the land like a destroying flood, carrying away everything of value and leaving only ruins behind. Among the thousands torn from their homeland was a man named Tobit. He had been born in the northern kingdom, in the territory of Naphtali, where his family had lived for generations. His roots ran deep in that soil. His heart was tied to those hills and valleys where his ancestors were buried and his children had taken their first steps. But now, all that was memory. The Assyrians had herded him and his family, along with thousands of others, on the long march to Nineveh. It was a journey that broke many hearts and killed many bodies. The old and weak fell by the roadside. Children cried for water that was not given. Women wept for homes they would never see again. Nineveh was a great city, perhaps the greatest in the world at that time. Its walls were massive, its palaces magnificent, its markets filled with goods from every corner of the earth. But for the exiles from Israel, it was a prison. They were strangers in a strange land, speaking a different language, following different customs, worshiping different gods. The exile was not just physical, but spiritual. How could they sing the songs of Zion in this foreign place? How could they keep the laws of Moses when surrounded by people who had never heard of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? How could they maintain their identity as God's chosen people when they had been conquered and enslaved by those who worshipped idols? Many of the exiles gave up. They adopted Assyrian names, learned Assyrian ways, married into Assyrian families. It seemed easier to blend in than to stand out, safer to conform than to resist. The pain of maintaining their separate identity felt too great when added to the pain of losing their homeland. But Tobit was different. Something in his heart refused to bend, refused to break, refused to surrender what his fathers had passed down to him. He would live in exile, but he would not live as an exile. He would maintain his faith, keep his traditions, honor his God, no matter what it cost him. This was not easy. In Nineveh, there were no temples to the God of Israel, no priests to offer sacrifices, no community gatherings for worship and prayer. Tobit had to create his own ways of staying connected to the faith of his fathers. He prayed alone in his room. He studied the scriptures in secret. He taught his son about the God who had made promises to their people. Even harder was his commitment to righteousness in a world that seemed to reward only power and wealth. The Ninevites respected strength and success. They had little use for mercy or justice or compassion for the poor. Yet Tobit could not abandon the values that defined who he was as a son of Abraham. He gave alms to the poor, even when he had little to give. He visited the sick, even when such visits brought him no advantage. He buried the dead according to proper customs, even when this made him unpopular with his neighbors. He fed the hungry, clothed the naked, comforted the mourning, all the works of mercy that his faith demanded. This righteousness came at a cost. While other exiles might climb the social ladder in Nineveh by compromising their principles, Tobit's faithfulness kept him humble and poor. While others gained favor with their captors by adopting foreign ways, Tobit's steadfastness made him suspect and unwelcome in many circles. Yet he persisted. Day after day, year after year, he tried to live as if he were still in the promised land, still surrounded by people who shared his faith, still able to worship openly and follow God's commandments without fear. His life became a kind of worship, a daily offering of faithfulness in the face of overwhelming opposition. The city of Nineveh went about its business, unaware that in its midst lived a man whose prayers rose daily to heaven, whose acts of kindness reflected divine love, whose steady faithfulness was like a lamp burning in the darkness of exile. The great and powerful rulers of Assyria never suspected that one of their Hebrew captives was more truly noble than any of their princes, more genuinely wealthy than any of their merchants. In heaven, the angels watched. They saw the faithful heart beating in the midst of spiritual wilderness. They witnessed the daily struggle to maintain righteousness in unrighteous surroundings. They heard the prayers that rose from that small house in Nineveh, prayers that reached the throne of God with the sweetness of incense and the power of genuine faith. Tobit's devotion morning by morning, Tobit rose before the sun to begin his day with prayer. In the darkness of his small room, he would face toward Jerusalem, though he could not see it across the hundreds of miles that separated him from the holy city, and pour out his heart to the God of his fathers. These prayers were not mere recitations of familiar words, though he did speak the ancient phrases that had been passed down through generations. They were conversations with the divine, honest talks between a man who had lost everything earthly and the God who remained constant through all changes. He would speak of his loneliness, his fears for his family, his struggles to remain faithful in an unfaithful world, but always, always he would end with gratitude. Gratitude for life itself, for his wife Anna, who shared his exile and his faith, for his son Tobias, who was growing into a righteous young man despite the corrupting influences around them. Gratitude for small mercies, food on the table, a roof over their heads, safety through another night in a dangerous city. After prayer came the daily work of survival. Tobit had found employment in the household of a wealthy Assyrian, work that was honest though humble. He kept accounts, managed correspondence, handled the business affairs that his employer was too important to attend to personally. The work required him to read and write in languages he had learned as an adult, to understand customs that were foreign to his upbringing. Yet he approached even this secular work as a form of service to God. He was scrupulously honest in his record-keeping, fair in his dealings with servants and merchants, respectful to all, regardless of their social position. His employer trusted him completely, knowing that Tobit's word was more reliable than legal contracts, his integrity more valuable than watchful supervision. The afternoons brought opportunities for the works of mercy that defined Tobit's character. When his regular work was finished, he would walk through the poor quarters of Nineveh, looking for ways to help. His purse was never heavy, but he shared whatever coins he had with those who had even less. His hands were not those of a physician, but he offered what comfort he could to the sick and dying. Most challenging of all was his commitment to proper burial for his fellow Israelites who died in exile. The Assyrians had little respect for foreign customs and less interest in providing decent burial for conquered peoples. Bodies of Hebrew exiles were often left unburied, treated as refuse rather than as remains of human beings made in God's image. This Tobit could not bear. Again and again, at risk to his own safety and reputation, he would retrieve the bodies of his countrymen and give them proper burial according to the laws of Moses. He would wash the bodies with his own hands, wrap them in clean cloth purchased with his own money, carry them to burial places outside the city where he dug graves in the hard ground. These acts of mercy were not only dangerous, but expensive. The cloth, the burial spices, the tools for digging, all came from his modest earnings. His wife Anna sometimes protested that they could barely afford their own needs, that his generosity would leave them destitute. But Tobit could not be moved from his conviction that the dead deserved honor regardless of their circumstances. His commitment to righteousness extended to his role as father and teacher. Each evening, he would sit with young Tobias and share the stories of their people. He told of Abraham's faith, Moses' leadership, David's courage, Solomon's wisdom. He taught the boy the laws and customs that made them different from their neighbors, the beliefs that sustained their identity as children of the covenant. These lessons were more than history or religion. They were survival training for a young man who would grow up surrounded by influences that could easily pull him away from his heritage. Tobit knew that wealth and pleasure and social acceptance would all tempt his son to abandon the difficult path of faithfulness. Only deep roots in the faith of his fathers could give Tobias strength to resist such temptations. The years passed, and Tobit's devotion never wavered. Through seasons of plenty and seasons of want, through times when his acts of mercy were praised and times when they brought persecution, through moments of hope and periods of despair, he maintained his commitment to live as a faithful son of Abraham in the midst of pagan Babylon. His neighbors respected him, even when they did not understand him. His employers trusted him completely. His fellow exiles looked to him for guidance and encouragement. Without seeking any position of leadership, he had become a pillar of strength for the scattered community of believers trying to maintain their faith far from home. But devotion that burns so brightly in a dark world often attracts the attention of powers that prefer darkness to light. The very faithfulness that made Tobit precious in God's sight was about to bring him face to face with suffering that would test the foundations of his faith. The parallel life of Sarah, 700 miles away from Nineveh, in the distant city of Ecbatana in the land of Media, another story of faith and suffering, was unfolding. In a house smaller than the palaces of the rich, but larger than the hovels of the poor, there lived a young woman whose beauty was matched only by her terror. Sarah, daughter of Raguel, had been blessed by nature and birth with everything that should have made her life a joy. Her face was lovely enough to make poets sing and artists weep for want of skill to capture her grace. Her voice carried music that could soothe troubled hearts and lift weary spirits. Her mind was quick and keen, her heart generous and kind. She came from a good family with deep roots in the community of Hebrew exiles who had made Media their home. Her father Raguel was respected as a man of wisdom and integrity. Her mother was known for her kindness to neighbors and strangers alike. The family had prospered modestly in their adopted land, finding ways to maintain their faith while building a life in foreign soil. By all rights, Sarah should have been the happiest of young women. She had reached the age when thoughts turn to marriage and family, when a young woman begins to dream of her own household, her own children, her own place in the long chain of generations that stretches back to Abraham and forward to the promised future. But Sarah's dreams had become nightmares. Where other young women her age were courted and wed and blessed with the joys of marriage, Sarah had known only terror and loss. 7 times she had stood beneath the wedding canopy. 7 times she had spoken the ancient vows that bind husband and wife together. 7 times she had hoped that finally, she would know the happiness that was meant to be her birthright. And 7 times on the very night of her wedding, death had entered her chamber. The demon Asmodeus had marked her as his own, though she had done nothing to deserve such attention, committed no sin to attract such evil. Perhaps it was her very goodness that drew the demon's hatred, her purity that inflamed his desire to corrupt and destroy. Perhaps it was simply the random malice that evil sometimes shows toward innocence, striking without reason or warning. Each wedding night had followed the same horrible pattern. The celebration would end, the guests would depart, the new husband would come to her room with love and hope in his heart. Then darkness would descend, not the gentle darkness of evening, but a malevolent shadow that seemed to devour light itself. In that darkness, the demon would strike. The young men died without warning, without chance to fight or flee or even cry out. One moment they were alive and eager and full of dreams for the future. The next moment they were corpses, their lives snuffed out as easily as candles in a strong wind. 7 good men, 7 families thrown into mourning, 7 hopes for happiness turned to grief. After each death, Sarah would be found in her chamber, alive but shattered, untouched physically but wounded in ways that cut deeper than any blade. The community whispered about her, some with pity, others with suspicion. Was she cursed? Had she somehow brought this evil upon herself? Was she a victim, or was she the cause of these tragedies? The whispers followed her through the streets of Ecbatana, like shadows. Children would hide when she passed. Mothers would pull their sons away when they saw her coming. Other young women avoided her company, fearing that her curse might somehow spread to them. She became isolated in her own community, set apart by circumstances she could not control or understand. Sarah's parents watched their daughter's suffering with hearts that broke a little more each day. They had raised her with love, taught her the ways of righteousness, prepared her for a life of joy and fulfillment. To see her tormented by forces beyond their power to fight or understand was agony beyond words. They consulted wise men and holy men, seeking answers that never came. They offered prayers and sacrifices, hoping for intervention that seemed never to arrive. They tried everything human wisdom could suggest: different ceremonies, protective amulets, changes of residence, periods of fasting and prayer. Nothing helped. The demon's hold on their daughter seemed unbreakable. Raguel began to fear that his family line would end with Sarah. Who would dare marry a woman whose previous husbands had all died mysteriously on their wedding night? What man would risk his life for love, however deep? What parents would consent to such a union for their son? Sarah herself moved through her days like a living ghost, beautiful but untouchable, alive but cut off from life's greatest joys. She helped her mother with household tasks, spoke kindly to neighbors who still treated her with civility, maintained the appearance of normal life while carrying within her heart a burden too heavy for any young woman to bear. In her darkest moments, she considered ending her own life. If she were gone, the demon would have no reason to kill innocent men. If she died, perhaps other families would be spared the grief that had become her constant companion. Death seemed preferable to a life that brought nothing but sorrow to everyone she touched, but something always held her back from that final step. Perhaps it was her faith, weakened but not destroyed by her suffering. Perhaps it was love for her parents, who had already endured so much pain on her account. Perhaps it was simply hope, hope that someday, somehow, deliverance would come. In her prayers, Sarah cried out to the God of her fathers with desperation that came from the depths of her soul. She begged for understanding, for relief, for an end to the nightmare that her life had become. She pleaded for the chance to know normal love, to bear children, to experience the joys that other women took for granted. Her prayers rose from Ecbatana like smoke from a sacrifice, carrying with them all the anguish of a heart that refused to surrender hope, despite overwhelming evidence that hope was foolish. In heaven, these prayers were heard and treasured, adding their voice to another cry for help that was rising from a city far away, where an old man named Tobit was about to discover that faithfulness sometimes leads through valleys darker than any exile. Divine response. In the highest heaven, where time moves differently and 1,000 years are like a single day, two prayers arrived at the throne of the Most High in the same eternal moment. Though separated by hundreds of earthly miles and spoken by hearts that had never met, these cries for help rose together like twin flames reaching toward the source of all light and love. From Nineveh came the voice of Tobit, faithful servant grown old in exile, his body broken and his spirit tested almost beyond endurance. Years of righteousness had led not to prosperity but to poverty, not to honor but to mockery, not to health but to blindness, that had stolen his ability to work and provide for his family. His prayer was the cry of a man who had given everything to serve God and found himself abandoned in his deepest need. From Ecbatana came the voice of Sarah, beautiful and pure, whose only sin was existing in a world where evil sometimes strikes without reason or warning. 7 times she had tried to embrace the life that should have been her birthright. 7 times death had stolen her happiness before it could truly begin. Her prayer was the cry of a woman who had done nothing wrong, yet found herself trapped in circumstances that seemed to have no solution. Both prayers were heard, not heard as an afterthought or considered as one item among many on some divine agenda, but received with the full attention of perfect love, embraced with the complete compassion of one who knows every tear that falls and counts every sigh that rises from a breaking heart. The response was immediate, though its unfolding would take time by earthly measure. Before either Tobit or Sarah had finished speaking their prayers, the solution was already in motion. Not a solution that would simply remove their problems, but one that would transform their suffering into blessing, their despair into hope, their isolation into connection. The angel Raphael, who had been watching these two faithful hearts with growing compassion, felt the divine commission settle upon him like a mantle of authority and purpose. This was why he had been created. This was the moment toward which all his preparation had been leading. These two souls, crying out from their separate kinds of darkness, would become the occasion for one of heaven's greatest interventions in human affairs. But the divine response would not be simple or straightforward. God's ways are not human ways, and heaven's solutions often work through means that earthly wisdom would never consider. The healing that both Tobit and Sarah needed would come not through direct intervention from above, but through the seemingly random movements of ordinary life. A journey would need to be taken. A young man would need to trust a stranger. An ancient debt would need to be collected. A marriage would need to be arranged. A demon would need to be confronted. Old eyes would need to be opened. Each element would seem unconnected to the others, yet all would work together as parts of a single, magnificent plan. Raphael understood his role perfectly. He would not appear in blazing glory to solve everything with supernatural power. Instead, he would walk among humans in disguise, offering guidance that seemed like good advice, protection that looked like fortunate coincidence, healing that appeared to come through natural means. This was the way of heaven's working in the world, not to overwhelm human freedom with divine force, but to weave divine love into the fabric of human choice and circumstance. The miracle would be real, but it would be a miracle that honored human dignity and responsibility while accomplishing heaven's purposes. The other angels watched with interest as Raphael prepared for his mission. They had seen him heal in heaven, where his patients were beings of pure spirit who could be restored with a touch. But this assignment would require different skills: the ability to move among material beings without revealing his true nature, to accomplish spiritual healing through physical means, to work miracles that looked like blessed coincidences. Michael offered his blessing, knowing that the mission might require protection from the demon that tormented Sarah. Gabriel added his encouragement, recognizing that important messages would need to be delivered with perfect timing. The other archangels each contributed their support, understanding that Raphael's success would bring glory to heaven and relief to two deserving souls. As Raphael prepared to descend from heaven to earth, taking on the appearance and limitations of human form, he carried with him not just the power to heal, but the wisdom to know exactly how that healing should unfold. He knew where Tobit lived and what Tobit needed. He knew where Sarah suffered and how her torment could be ended. Most importantly, he knew how their separate stories could be woven together into a single tale of redemption and joy. The divine response to human prayer was about to become human experience. Two hearts that had cried out in darkness were about to discover that their cries had been heard, their needs had been seen, their faithful endurance had been rewarded. But they would discover this not through supernatural spectacle, but through the gentle unfolding of events that would seem natural, even as they accomplished the impossible. Heaven was about to touch earth, but so quietly that only those with eyes to see would recognize the miracle taking place in their midst. Tobias prepares. In the ancient city of Nineveh, where the Tigris River flows beneath desert skies, an old man sits with his son. Tobit's eyes see only darkness now, yet his heart burns with purpose. The silver he once loaned to a friend in distant rages must be retrieved. His family needs this money to survive. "My son," Tobit says, his voice gentle but firm, "I grow old and weak. The blindness that came upon me shows no signs of lifting. We must think of tomorrow." Tobias listens with the respect of a devoted child. He has watched his father suffer, seen him stumble in familiar rooms, witnessed tears of frustration when simple tasks become mountains to climb. Yet Tobit never complains about God's will. "In the city of rages, in Media, lives my kinsman Gabael," Tobit continues. "Long ago I entrusted him with 10 talents of silver. A bond was written and sealed. That silver could sustain us through many seasons." The journey spans hundreds of miles across dangerous terrain. Bandits roam the roads between cities, wild animals prowl at night, rivers flood without warning, weather changes like a fickle friend. No wise father sends his son alone on such a path. "But who will guide me?" Tobias asks. "I know not the roads to Media. The way is treacherous and long." Tobit nods slowly. He has thought of this problem through many sleepless nights. "Go to the marketplace," he tells his son. "Seek a trustworthy man who knows the roads well, someone reliable who can serve as your companion and guide." Anna, Tobias's mother, overhears their conversation. Her heart fills with worry, like a cup with rain. She has already lost so much. The thought of sending her only son across the wilderness makes her tremble. "Why must he go at all?" she pleads. "Is silver worth more than our son's life? We have managed this long without Gabael's money." Tobit reaches for his wife's hand. His touch speaks of years together, of shared sorrows and small joys. "Trust in the Lord," he whispers. "He who watches over sparrows will surely watch over our boy." Tobias rises early the next morning. The marketplace bustles with merchants, travelers, and locals buying bread and oil. He walks among them, searching faces for signs of honesty and strength. A guide must be more than merely willing. He must be capable, brave, and wise. Many men offer their services. Some boast of their courage. Others speak of roads they claim to know. But something feels wrong about each one. Either they seem too eager for payment, or too casual about danger, or too quick with promises that sound hollow. Then, as morning light grows stronger, a stranger approaches. He appears neither young nor old, with kind eyes and a calm manner. His clothes are simple but well made. His voice carries authority without harshness. "I hear you seek a guide to Media," the man says. "I am Azariah, son of Ananias. I know the roads you must travel. I have walked them many times in safety." Something about this Azariah brings peace to Tobias's spirit. The stranger's presence feels like cool water on a hot day. When he speaks, his words flow like honey, sweet and smooth. "What payment do you require?" Tobias asks. "A drachma each day, plus my food and shelter," Azariah replies. "Nothing more. I seek not riches, but honest work and good company." Tobias studies the man carefully. Azariah's hands show calluses of labor, but remain gentle. His eyes hold depths that speak of wisdom gained through years. Most importantly, when he mentions God's protection, his voice carries true reverence. "Wait here," Tobias says. "I must speak with my father." He hurries home, excitement building in his chest. Something tells him this Azariah is exactly the guide they need. When he describes the stranger, Tobit smiles for the first time in days. "Bring him to me," the old man says. "Let me speak with him myself." Tobias returns to find Azariah waiting patiently. He has not wandered off or grown impatient. Instead, he stands quietly, watching children play in the dust while their mothers bargain for grain. "My father wishes to meet you," Tobias explains. They walk together through Nineveh's narrow streets. Azariah matches his pace to Tobias's, never rushing ahead or lagging behind. He points out interesting sights along the way, speaking of the city's history with genuine fondness. At Tobit's house, the old man extends his hand in greeting. Though he cannot see Azariah's face, something in the stranger's voice brings him comfort. "From what tribe and family do you come?" Tobit asks, following ancient customs of hospitality. "I am a Hebrew like yourself," Azariah answers. "I have come to Nineveh seeking work, as many do in these times." They speak of mutual acquaintances, of shared traditions, of the roads Azariah has traveled. Each answer satisfies Tobit more completely. This man understands their people's ways. He respects their customs and beliefs. "The journey is long and filled with peril," Tobit warns. "My son is precious to me beyond measure. Can you promise to bring him safely home, safely home?" Azariah's response comes without hesitation. "By God's grace, I will guard him as if he were my own brother. No harm will come to him while he travels with me." Anna watches from the doorway, still worried, but sensing something special about this stranger. When Azariah looks her way, his smile holds such warmth that her fears begin to settle like dust after rain. "When do we depart?" Tobias asks. "Tomorrow at dawn," Azariah suggests. Travel is best begun with morning light and fresh strength. That evening, the household prepares for the journey. Anna packs food that will not spoil quickly. Tobit gives his son the signed bond that will prove their claim to Gabal's debt. They gather warm clothes for cool nights and light garments for desert heat. But the greatest preparation happens in their hearts. Through prayer and quiet conversation, they ready themselves for separation. Tobit blesses his son with words passed down through generations. Anna holds Tobias close, breathing in his familiar scent. "Remember all I have taught you," Tobit says. "Honor God in all your ways. Be kind to the poor and generous to those in need. Trust in the Lord's protection, for his mercy endures forever." As night settles over Nineveh, Tobias lies on his sleeping mat thinking of tomorrow's adventure. He has never traveled so far from home. The unknown road stretches before him like a scroll waiting to be unrolled. Yet somehow the presence of Azariah brings him peace. The stranger's calm confidence suggests that this journey, though long and challenging, will unfold according to God's perfect plan. In the darkness, Tobias whispers a prayer of gratitude. Providence has provided exactly what they needed, exactly when they needed it most. Tomorrow's dawn will bring the first steps of a journey that will change everything. The disguised angel dawn breaks over Nineveh like a gentle blessing, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. Tobias rises early, his heart beating with excitement and nervousness. Today begins his first great adventure, his first journey beyond the familiar walls of home. Anna has prepared a traveling pack with care. Dried figs, barley cakes, cheese wrapped in cloth, and a water skin filled to the brim. Her hands shake slightly as she ties the bundle closed. Every mother's fear whispers in her heart, but faith speaks louder. "Be careful, my son," she says, smoothing his hair one final time. "Listen to Azariah's counsel. Stay close to him on the road." Tobit sits by the door, unable to see but sensing the morning's activity around him. His weathered hands hold a small purse containing coins for the journey. Though they have little money, he wants his son to travel with dignity. "Here," he says, pressing the purse into Tobias's palm, "for lodging and meals along the way. Do not let Azariah pay for what should be your responsibility." Footsteps approach their door. Azariah arrives precisely at the promised time, neither early nor late. His punctuality speaks of reliability, a quality worth more than gold on dangerous roads. "Good morning," the guide says, his voice carrying the freshness of dawn. "Are you ready for our journey?" Tobias shoulders his pack and takes a deep breath. The familiar sense of home, his mother's cooking, his father's herbs, the oil lamp that burns through long nights, surround him like an embrace. Soon these will be replaced by desert air and foreign places. Tobit stands to bid them farewell. Though darkness covers his eyes, his blessing flows from a heart filled with light. "May the God of heaven prosper your journey and bring you both safely home. May his angel accompany you." These words hang in the air like incense, sweet and powerful. Azariah bows his head respectfully, accepting the blessing with grace that seems almost otherworldly. "Your faith honors the Lord," the guide replies. "He will surely watch over us." Anna embraces Tobias one last time, whispering prayers and promises into his ear. "Come back to me safely," she pleads. "Return with stories to warm our winter evenings." The two travelers step into Nineveh's awakening streets. Merchants open their stalls, animals stir in their pens. The city stretches and yawns like a great creature greeting the day. As they walk toward the city gates, Azariah proves to be an excellent companion. He points out interesting sights without overwhelming Tobias with chatter. His presence brings calm rather than anxiety, peace rather than pressure. "Tell me about the road ahead," Tobias requests. "What dangers should we expect?" Azariah considers this question thoughtfully. "The path is well traveled but requires caution. We will cross rivers that can flood suddenly. Wild animals roam certain areas, especially at night. Bandits sometimes trouble lone travelers." "Does this worry you?" Tobias asks. "Worry serves no purpose," his companion replies. "Preparation and wisdom serve much better. We will travel during daylight hours. We will stay alert, but not afraid, stress. Most importantly, we will trust in divine protection." Something about Azariah's manner suggests he has faced greater dangers than bandits or beasts. His confidence comes not from boasting, but from deep certainty. When he speaks of divine protection, his voice carries the ring of personal experience. They pass through Nineveh's great gates as the sun climbs higher. The road stretches before them, dusty and ancient, worn smooth by countless feet across countless years. Other travelers move in both directions, merchants with loaded camels, families seeking new homes, messengers carrying important news. "Stay close," Azariah advises. "The road teaches many lessons, but the first is never to wander alone." Their pace settles into a comfortable rhythm, neither hurries nor dawdles. Azariah seems to know instinctively when Tobias needs rest, when he needs encouragement, when silence serves better than conversation. The guide's knowledge amazes his young companion. He knows which wells provide the sweetest water. He recognizes approaching weather from the smallest cloud formations. He can read the road like a scholar reads scrolls. "How have you learned so much?" Tobias wonders. "Travel teaches those willing to learn," Azariah answers. "Each journey brings new wisdom. Each road reveals fresh truths about the world and its maker." As the morning progresses, Tobias begins to relax. His initial nervousness fades like morning mist before the sun. Azariah's presence brings such peace that walking feels more like a pleasant stroll than a dangerous expedition. They encounter other travelers frequently. Azariah greets each group with courtesy, but keeps their conversations brief. He seems to evaluate people quickly, determining who can be trusted and who should be avoided. "That merchant there," he says quietly, nodding toward a well-dressed man with elaborate baggage. His servants look nervous. His goods may not be honestly obtained. "How can you tell?" Tobias asks. "Honest men travel with confidence. Thieves travel with fear, always watching over their shoulders." This lesson proves valuable immediately. The merchant approaches them, offering to share the cost of lodging at the next inn. His smile seems friendly, but his eyes dart nervously from side to side. "Thank you for your kindness," Azariah replies politely, "but we have already made arrangements." They have made no such arrangements, but the merchant accepts this excuse and moves on. Later, at a well where travelers gather, they hear disturbing news. Three pilgrims were robbed by accomplices of a well-dressed merchant who gained their trust through false generosity. "Wisdom protected us," Azariah observes simply. The day progresses peacefully. They share their simple meal in the shade of ancient olive trees. Cool water from a roadside spring refreshes them. Birds sing overhead while gentle breezes carry the scent of wildflowers. Tobias marvels at how different this journey feels from his expectations. Instead of constant danger and hardship, he finds beauty and wonder. His mysterious guide seems to transform obstacles into opportunities for learning. "You have a gift," Tobias tells Azariah. "You make difficult things seem easy." The guide's smile holds depths that Tobias cannot fathom. "All gifts come from above," he replies. "We are merely vessels through which divine grace flows." Evening approaches as they near a small town. Azariah leads them to a clean inn where the keeper greets him like an old friend. They secure comfortable lodging at a fair price, enjoy a hot meal, and settle in for their first night away from home. As Tobias prepares for sleep, he reflects on the day's events. Every detail seems to have unfolded perfectly. They faced no serious dangers, met no unsurmountable obstacles, encountered no insurmountable problems. "Thank you," he tells his guide. "This day has been far better than I dared hope." Azariah sits by the window, gazing out at stars that shine like scattered diamonds across the desert sky. His expression holds such serenity that Tobias feels his own worries melt away like wax near flame. "Rest well," the guide says softly. "Tomorrow brings new roads and fresh wonders. Each step takes us closer to our destination and deeper into God's unfolding plan." Sleep comes easily to Tobias that night, carried on wings of gratitude and growing trust in his mysterious companion. On the road to Rages, morning light filters through the inn's small window, gentle as a mother's touch. Tobias wakes refreshed, surprised by how well he slept in a familiar place. The soft sounds of other travelers preparing for their journeys drift through thin walls. Azariah sits quietly by the window, already dressed and ready. He seems to need little sleep, or perhaps he rises much earlier than others. His calm presence has become as comforting as a warm fire on a cold night. "Did you rest well?" the guide asks, his voice carrying genuine concern. "Better than at home," Tobias admits. "Something about this journey brings peace I did not expect." They break their fast with bread still warm from the baker's oven, honey that tastes of summer flowers, and milk fresh from the goat. The innkeeper refuses extra payment, claiming Azariah once helped his sick daughter when no physician could be found. "You practice medicine?" Tobias asks as they gather their belongings. "I know something of healing," Azariah replies. "All knowledge serves the Almighty's purposes." The road leads them through countryside that changes like pages in an illuminated book. Rolling hills give way to flat plains, green pastures yield to rocky ground. Each mile brings new sights, fresh wonders, different challenges. Other travelers share the ancient highway. A family drives a cart loaded with possessions, seeking new opportunities in distant cities. Merchants lead pack animals heavy with goods from exotic lands. Pilgrims journey toward holy sites, their faces bright with devotion. Azariah knows many of these people, or at least recognizes their types. He points out subtle signs that reveal each traveler's character and purpose. "See how that merchant walks," he observes. "His steps are confident but not arrogant. His servants smile naturally. His animals appear well-fed and cared for. This man conducts honest business." "And those pilgrims?" Tobias asks, indicating a group walking ahead. "Their poverty is real, not assumed for show. Their devotion runs deep. They will complete their journey regardless of hardship." These lessons fascinate Tobias. His sheltered life in Nineveh provided little opportunity to study human nature so closely. Under Azariah's gentle instruction, he begins to read the great book of humanity. The sun climbs higher, warming the earth and releasing the scent of wild herbs. Bees hum among flowering bushes. Lizards dart across the path like tiny dragons. Life flourishes even in this harsh landscape. "Tell me about Rages," Tobias requests. What kind of city will we find there? Azariah's expression grows thoughtful. An ancient place with ancient customs. The people remember old ways while embracing new opportunities. Your kinsman Gabriel has earned respect through fair dealing and generous giving. Have you met him before? I know his reputation. In a city of merchants, his word carries weight. When Gabriel makes a promise, wise men consider it binding as any written contract. This news brings Tobias comfort. The silver his father entrusted to Gabriel will surely be safe. But more importantly, they will find welcome in a foreign city through this kinsman's good name. The road begins to climb into hill country. Rocky outcroppings provide shade and shelter. Springs bubble from hidden sources, creating small oases of green life. Ancient olive trees spread gnarled branches like protective arms. Shall we rest here? Azariah suggests, indicating a particularly pleasant spot where grass grows thick and a spring provides cool water. They settle in the shade, grateful for respite from the mounting heat. Tobias drinks deeply from the spring while Azariah shares dried fruit from his own provisions. The water tastes pure and sweet, carrying hints of minerals from deep earth. How do you know so much about roads and travelers? Tobias asks. Were you trained as a guide? I have walked many paths in service to the Most High, Azariah answers. Each journey teaches new lessons about his creation and his people. Something in this response suggests deeper meaning, but Tobias cannot grasp what remains hidden. His companion speaks simply, yet his words carry weight beyond their surface meaning. A group of travelers approaches their resting place. 3 men lead heavily loaded donkeys, while a 4th walks ahead, scanning the horizon nervously. Their behavior suggests either guilt or fear. Azariah watches them carefully, but says nothing until they pass beyond hearing. Trouble follows those men, he observes quietly. We would do well to maintain our distance. What kind of trouble? The kind that seeks innocent travelers to blame for crimes they did not commit. Sure enough, within an hour, soldiers on horseback thunder past, clearly pursuing someone. The dust of their passage hangs in the air long after they disappear around a distant bend. Your wisdom protected us again, Tobias marvels. Wisdom belongs to God alone, Azariah corrects gently. We are blessed when he shares small portions with us. They resume their journey refreshed and alert. The road descends into a valley where a river winds between green banks. A stone bridge spans the flowing water, ancient but still sturdy. Here we must be especially careful, Azariah warns. Rivers can change quickly. What appears calm may hide dangerous currents. As they approach the bridge, Tobias hears the water's voice, sometimes gentle, sometimes urgent, always alive. Fish move in the shallows like silver coins thrown by generous hands. Birds nest in reeds that bend with each passing breeze. The river speaks many languages, Azariah observes. To those who listen, it tells stories of rain in distant mountains, of seasons changing, of life sustained by flowing grace. Tobias tries to hear these stories, but catches only fragments. Still, something about the water's constant movement speaks to his soul. Like prayer flowing toward heaven, the river never stops seeking its ultimate destination. They cross the bridge carefully, testing each stone before trusting their weight to it. Halfway across, Tobias pauses to watch fish swimming in the clear water below. Some move alone while others travel in schools, their silver bodies flashing like living light. Even fish understand companionship, Azariah notes. The Creator builds community into every corner of his creation. On the bridge's far side, the road curves through farmland where grain waves in golden fields. Farmers work among their crops, faces bronzed by sun and wind. Children play between the rows while their mothers gather vegetables for evening meals. This land feeds many people, Tobias observes, and it teaches them patience, Azariah adds. Seeds planted in spring faith become autumn's harvest. The rhythm of planting and reaping mirrors our spiritual journey. Evening light begins to slant across the landscape, painting everything in warm amber tones. They must find shelter before darkness falls completely. Azariah points toward a cluster of buildings visible in the distance. Another inn awaits, he says. Tonight we rest. Tomorrow brings us closer to our destination. As they walk toward evening's shelter, Tobias reflects on the day's journey. Each mile has brought new sights, fresh lessons, deeper appreciation for his mysterious guide. More than a skilled traveler, Azariah seems to carry wisdom that transforms ordinary experiences into windows of understanding. The inn welcomes them with the warmth of burning lamps and the aroma of cooking food. Other travelers gather around tables, sharing stories and breaking bread together. In this simple hospitality, Tobias glimpses something beautiful about human nature. We are almost family here, the innkeeper declares, serving generous portions of stew thick with vegetables and seasoned with herbs. All who travel the same roads share common bonds. That night, as Tobias prepares for sleep, he offers quiet prayers of gratitude. The journey continues to unfold like a scroll revealing God's providential care. With Azariah as his guide, even dangerous roads become pathways of discovery and growth. The demon lurks in the city of Ecbatana, where the mountains kiss the sky and ancient walls hold centuries of secrets. A young woman sits alone in her chamber. Sarah, daughter of Raguel, possesses beauty that turns heads in the marketplace and wisdom that impresses the village elders. Yet sorrow weighs upon her heart like stones in a basket. 7 times she has been given in marriage. 7 times joy has turned to ashes. Each wedding night brings death instead of love, leaving behind only grief and whispered accusations. The people of Ecbatana speak her name with pity and fear. Some call her cursed. Others suggest her family has angered the gods. A few whisper of demons that follow her like shadows, bringing doom to any man who dares claim her as wife. Sarah knows the truth cuts deeper than gossip. An evil spirit named Asmodeus has claimed her for his own. This demon of lust and destruction cannot bear to see her find happiness with mortal men. Each time she takes a husband, jealous rage drives the creature to murder before morning light. Her first husband, young and eager, spoke sweetly of the children they would raise together. On their wedding night, he approached her chamber with flowers picked from his mother's garden. By dawn, he lay cold and still, his dreams scattered like petals on the wind. The second man was older, more cautious. He brought gifts of silver and promised patience. Yet patience could not protect him from supernatural fury. Before the wedding candles burned down, the demon struck again. One by one, 7 good men lost their lives for the crime of loving Sarah. 7 families mourned sons and brothers. 7 graves marked the demon's triumph over human hope. Now Sarah rarely leaves her room. The weight of guilt and shame presses down upon her shoulders. How many more must die because of her cursed existence? How long must she carry this burden of unwanted attention from the realm of darkness? Her father Raguel loves her deeply but fears for her future. What father can promise his daughter happiness when death stalks her every step? What man would dare court a woman whose very touch brings doom? Her mother watches with eyes full of tears. She remembers Sarah as a laughing child, quick to comfort injured animals and generous with the poor. How can such goodness attract such evil? What purpose does heaven serve in allowing innocence to suffer? In her darkest moments, Sarah considers ending her own life. Would death free her from the demon's obsession? Would silence finally bring peace to her tormented soul? But deeper wisdom stays her hand. Taking her own life would be another victory for evil, another triumph for the forces that hate everything good and beautiful in God's creation. Instead, she chooses to endure and to pray. Her prayers rise like incense toward heaven's throne. Lord God, she whispers through tears, you know my heart remains pure despite the evil that surrounds me. You see my desire to serve you faithfully. If it pleases you, free me from this torment. If not, grant me strength to bear whatever comes. Unknown to Sarah, her cries for help reach the very ears of the Almighty. In the celestial realms where angels dwell, her suffering moves hearts that know neither sleep nor sorrow. Plans form in divine councils. Help prepares to journey from heaven to earth. The demon Asmodeus remains unaware that his reign of terror approaches its end. Drunk on past victories, he grows careless and proud. His evil whispers fill Sarah's house with shadows and fear. Sometimes the creature shows himself in dreams, gloating over his conquests. His appearance shifts between forms, now a handsome youth, now a terrible beast, always radiating malice and lust. He claims ownership of Sarah's future, promising that no mortal man will ever possess what belongs to him alone. I have killed 7, the demon boasts in her nightmares. I will kill 70 times 7 if necessary. You are mine and mine alone until the end of time. Sarah wakes from such dreams trembling and sick. Yet even in her terror, she refuses to despair completely. Somewhere in her heart, faith flickers like a candle flame that will not be extinguished. During daylight hours, she occupies herself with simple tasks. She weaves cloth for the poor, tends her mother's garden, and helps neighbors with their children. Work provides escape from dark thoughts, and service to others brings small moments of peace. The children especially love Sarah's gentle ways. They gather around her like birds around scattered grain, listening to stories she tells and songs she sings. In their innocent laughter, she glimpses what her own children might have been like if the demon had not stolen her chances at motherhood. Sometimes visitors come from distant cities bringing news of the wider world. Sarah listens carefully to their tales, wondering if somewhere beyond the mountains lives a man strong enough to defeat her tormentor. Could prayer and faith accomplish what 7 husbands could not? Her cousin Anna, who married and moved to Nineveh, occasionally sends letters filled with family news. Anna's husband faces his own trials. Blindness and poverty test their faith daily. Yet they remain together, growing old in love and companionship. Reading these letters, Sarah feels both joy and envy. Joy for her cousin's happiness, envy for the normal life she herself may never know. Still, Anna's faithfulness through hardship provides inspiration. If love can survive blindness and want, perhaps it can also overcome supernatural opposition. The demon's presence grows stronger as each month passes. Objects move without explanation. Cold winds blow through closed rooms. Shadows gather in corners where no shadows should exist. The very air seems thick with malevolent watching. Raguel considers moving his family to another city, perhaps even another country. But wise men warn that demons follow their prey across any distance. Running would solve nothing while potentially making matters worse. Instead, he increases their household prayers and charitable giving. He invites holy men to bless their home and offers sacrifices at the local temple. These actions provide some comfort but fail to break the supernatural chain that binds his daughter. Patience, the priests counsel. The Almighty sees all suffering and will act in his perfect time. Sarah clings to this promise even as hope grows dim. 7 deaths weigh heavily upon her conscience. 7 families curse her name. 7 graves remind everyone that her very existence brings danger to others. Yet deep within her heart, stronger than fear and deeper than despair, lives unshakable faith in divine justice. The God who created light and banished darkness will not abandon his faithful servant to eternal torment. Every morning she rises to face another day of uncertainty. Every evening she offers prayers of gratitude mixed with petition. Her life has become a battlefield where good and evil wage war for the fate of one human soul. Soon, though she does not know it, help approaches from an unexpected direction. A young man named Tobias travels the dusty roads with a mysterious guide. Their destination is the same city where Sarah waits and weeps and prays for deliverance. The final confrontation between light and darkness draws near. The river and the fish. The Tigris River flows before them like a ribbon of silver thread woven through the desert landscape. Its waters catch and scatter sunlight in countless dancing sparks. Reeds sway along the muddy banks while date palms provide patches of welcome shade. Tobias and Azariah have walked since dawn, covering many miles under the growing heat. The river offers a perfect place to rest, refresh themselves, and wash the dust of travel from their hands and faces. Here we can fill our water skins with fresh water, Azariah suggests. The current runs swift and clean. They approach the water's edge carefully. Riverbanks can be treacherous, especially where the current has carved away the earth. Rocks hidden beneath the surface pose dangers to unwary waders. Tobias kneels at the water's edge, cupping the cool liquid in his palms. It tastes sweet and pure, flavored with minerals from distant mountains. After drinking his fill, he begins to wash his face and arms. The water feels wonderful against his sun-warmed skin. He closes his eyes for a moment, enjoying the simple pleasure of coolness and cleanliness. Travel teaches appreciation for basic comforts often taken for granted at home. A sudden splash breaks the peaceful moment. Something large moves beneath the surface, creating ripples that spread outward in growing circles. Tobias opens his eyes to see a massive fish rising toward him. The creature appears as long as a man's arm and thick as his waist. Its mouth gapes wide, revealing rows of sharp teeth designed for tearing flesh. Its eyes gleam with predatory hunger as it lunges toward Tobias's feet. "Help me!" Tobias cries out, stumbling backward from the water's edge. But instead of fear, Azariah's voice carries calm authority. "Do not be afraid," he commands. "Catch the fish by its gills and drag it onto the bank." The instruction seems impossible. How can a young man seize such a dangerous creature with bare hands? The fish's teeth could easily tear through human flesh. Its powerful body could drag even a strong swimmer beneath the surface. Yet, something in Azariah's voice compels obedience. Tobias reaches into the water, grasping the great fish just behind its head. To his amazement, the creature becomes docile in his grip, as if some invisible power has drained away its wildness. He pulls the massive fish onto dry ground where it lies still and quiet. No longer does it thrash or snap. Instead, it waits peacefully, as if accepting its fate with resignation. "Well done," Azariah says with approval. "Now cut open the fish and remove its heart, liver, and gallbladder. Keep these organs, but throw away the rest." Tobias stares at his guide in confusion. "Why should we save these particular parts? Are they good to eat?" "Better than food," Azariah replies mysteriously. "These organs possess special properties useful for healing and protection." He produces a sharp knife from his traveling pouch and shows Tobias how to open the fish properly. His movements are swift and precise, suggesting long experience with such tasks. The heart and liver, when burned, produce smoke that drives away demons, Azariah explains as they work. No evil spirit can remain where this incense fills the air. Tobias's eyes widen with wonder. Truly, fish organs can banish demons? God places healing power in unexpected places, his guide answers. Wise men learn to recognize his gifts wherever they appear. They remove the heart and liver carefully, wrapping them in clean cloth to keep them fresh. The organs feel warm and slick, pulsing with strange energy that Tobias cannot understand but somehow senses. "And the gallbladder?" he asks. "Even more precious," Azariah says. "Mix its contents with oil and apply to eyes clouded by white film. The blindness will clear and sight will return." These words strike Tobias like lightning from a clear sky. His father's blindness has caused the family such sorrow. Could this strange fish hold the key to healing Tobit's damaged eyes? "Are you certain?" he whispers, hardly daring to hope. "As certain as the sunrise," Azariah assures him. "Trust in God's providence. He provides exactly what we need, exactly when we need it most." They prepare the precious organs with great care, wrapping each one separately and placing them safely in Tobias's traveling pack. The rest of the fish they leave for scavengers, following Azariah's peculiar instructions. Within minutes, carrion birds descend from the sky. Hawks and vultures tear at the fish's flesh, while smaller birds dart in to snatch whatever morsels they can carry. Soon only bones remain on the riverbank. Nature wastes nothing, Azariah observes. What serves one purpose today serves another tomorrow. They fill their water skins with fresh river water and continue their journey. But now Tobias walks with lighter steps and a heart full of excitement. The strange encounter has filled him with hope for his father's healing. "How did you know about the fish's properties?" he asks as they climb away from the river valley. "Ancient wisdom passed down through generations," Azariah replies. "Those who serve the Almighty learn many secrets hidden from common knowledge." The afternoon sun beats down mercilessly, but Tobias barely notices the heat. His mind races with possibilities. If the fish organs truly possess healing power, this journey will accomplish far more than retrieving silver from Gabael. They encounter other travelers on the road, but none mention seeing such a large fish in the Tigris. Some express amazement at Tobias's story, while others seem skeptical. A few nod knowingly, as if they too have witnessed strange events that defy ordinary explanation. "The world holds more mysteries than most people imagine," one old merchant tells them. "Those who travel far and trust deeply sometimes encounter wonders that stay-at-homes never see." As evening approaches, they seek shelter in a small village where the innkeeper welcomes them warmly. Over a simple meal of bread, cheese, and wine, Tobias carefully examines the fish organs wrapped in his pack. They remain fresh despite the day's heat, as if preserved by invisible power. "When will we reach Rages?" he asks Azariah. "Soon," his guide replies. "But our path may take us through Ecbatana first." I know a good family there who provides honest lodging to travelers. Tobias nods, trusting completely in his companion's wisdom. The day's miracle has strengthened his faith in divine providence. If God can provide healing organs from a dangerous fish, surely he guides every step of their journey. That night, as he prepares for sleep, Tobias whispers prayers of gratitude. His pack holds precious gifts that may restore his father's sight. His heart holds growing confidence that this strange journey unfolds according to heaven's perfect plan. Little does he know that their route through Ecbatana will lead to encounters far more wondrous than any fish in any river. The organs he guards so carefully will serve purposes beyond his wildest imagination. The healing tools. Morning light finds Tobias examining the precious fish organs once again. They remain perfectly preserved, showing no signs of decay despite the passing hours. Something supernatural protects them, maintaining their potency for future use. Azariah watches his young companion with quiet approval. "You guard those treasures carefully," he observes. "They may heal my father's eyes," Tobias replies. "Nothing could be more precious to me." "Indeed, but their value extends beyond what you can see. Those organs possess power to heal more than blindness." Tobias looks up with curiosity. His guide's words often carry deeper meanings that take time to understand. What other healing can they provide? The heart and liver, when burned, create smoke that purifies the air of evil influences, Azariah explains patiently. No demon can remain where this sacred incense fills a room. "And you truly believe this?" "I know this," Azariah corrects gently. "There are forces in this world beyond human sight. Some bring blessing, others curse. Wise men learn to distinguish between them and prepare accordingly." They break their fast with bread and honey, while other travelers prepare for their own journeys. The inn bustles with quiet activity as people gather belongings and settle accounts. "Tell me more about demons," Tobias requests. "How can fish organs drive away spirits?" Azariah considers his answer carefully. "The Almighty places power in unexpected vessels. A simple wooden staff became a serpent in Moses' hand. Water turned to wine at Cana. Common elements serve divine purposes when faith activates their hidden properties. But why these particular organs? The heart represents life itself. The liver cleanses poisons from blood. When offered to heaven through fire, they become instruments of purification. Their smoke carries prayers upward while driving evil downward." Tobias struggles to understand such mysteries. His sheltered life in Nineveh provided little education about supernatural warfare. Yet something in Azariah's manner suggests vast knowledge gained through experience. "Have you seen demons yourself?" he asks quietly. "I have encountered many forms of evil," his guide replies. "Some wear human faces, others hide in shadows. All flee before righteousness properly armed with divine authority." They gather their belongings and step into the morning air. The road ahead leads through hill country, where ancient olive groves cast welcome shade. Other travelers move in both directions, creating a steady stream of human commerce and communication. As they walk, Azariah continues his gentle instruction. "The gallbladder holds different medicine. Its bitter contents, mixed with pure oil, can restore sight to clouded eyes. Your father's blindness will yield to this remedy." "How can you be so certain?" "Because healing comes from the same source as creation itself. The God who first commanded light to shine can certainly restore illumination to darken vision." These words fill Tobias with growing excitement. Soon he will return home bearing gifts beyond his father's wildest dreams. Not only silver from Gabael, but actual restoration of sight lost to accident and age. "Must the medicine be prepared in any special way?" he asks. "Mix the gall with oil of the finest quality. Apply it directly to the affected eyes while speaking words of faith and gratitude. The healing power will do the rest." "Will it hurt my father?" "Healing sometimes brings temporary discomfort before permanent relief," Azariah admits, "but the pain passes quickly while the benefits endure forever." They pause at a roadside well where other travelers rest in the shade of spreading trees. The water tastes sweet and cool, flavored with minerals from deep earth. Tobias drinks gratefully while protecting his precious pack from curious eyes. A group of merchants discusses recent troubles in various cities. Bandits have grown bolder, corrupt officials demand increasing bribes. Strange diseases spread through crowded neighborhoods. "The world grows darker," one man complains. Evil seems to triumph while good men suffer. Azariah listens but says nothing until the merchants move on. Then he speaks quietly to Tobias. Darkness appears strongest just before dawn. When evil overreaches itself, divine justice responds with overwhelming power. Do you really believe that? I have seen it happen countless times. Pride goes before destruction, and arrogance before a fall. No evil endures forever because wickedness contains the seeds of its own defeat. They resume their journey through increasingly mountainous terrain. The road climbs steadily upward, winding between rocky outcroppings and groves of cedar trees. The air grows cooler and thinner, carrying scents of pine and wildflowers. Soon we will reach Ecbatana, Azariah announces, a beautiful city built on 7 hills where good people welcome honest travelers. Will we stay there long? Long enough to accomplish heaven's purposes, his guide answers mysteriously. As afternoon shadows lengthen, they crest a hill and see Ecbatana spread before them like a jewel set in mountain gold. White buildings climb the hillsides in terraced rows. Gardens burst with colorful flowers and fruit trees. The entire scene glows with prosperity and peace. It looks wonderful, Tobias breathes. Appearances can deceive, Azariah warns gently. Even beautiful places may harbor hidden sorrows. We must be prepared to serve wherever need exists. They descend toward the city gates as evening light begins to fade. Other travelers converge on the same destination, creating a small procession of dusty, tired people seeking rest and shelter. I know a family here who will welcome us, Azariah says. Raguel and his wife, Edna, practice hospitality as a sacred duty. Their home provides safe haven for wanderers far from their own hearths. Are they kinsmen of ours? Raguel shares bloodline with your father. You will find warm welcome there, and perhaps something more. Something in his guide's tone suggests deeper meaning, but Tobias cannot guess what awaits them in Ecbatana. He focuses instead on protecting the precious fish organs that may heal his father's eyes. Little does he know that those same organs will soon serve an even more dramatic purpose, breaking supernatural chains that have bound an innocent soul in torment for years. The healing tools rest safely in his pack, ready to fulfill destiny's plan. The House of Raguel. The streets of Ecbatana wind upward through the hillside city like ribbons wrapping a gift. Tobias and Azariah climb steadily, passing houses carved from pale stone that glows softly in the evening light. Gardens overflow with roses and jasmine, filling the air with sweet perfume. This way, Azariah says, turning down a quieter lane lined with olive trees. Raguel's house stands just ahead. The building rises 3 stories high, built in the traditional style with flat roofs and arched doorways. Carved vines decorate the entrance, while flowering plants cascade from window boxes. Everything speaks of prosperity earned through honest work and generous hospitality. Azariah approaches the wooden door and knocks with the rhythm used by familiar friends. Footsteps sound within, followed by the scraping of door bars being lifted. A man appears in the doorway, middle-aged and dignified, with kind eyes and a carefully trimmed beard. His face lights up with genuine pleasure when he sees the travelers. "Welcome, friends," he says warmly. "I am Raguel. My house stands open to all who travel in peace." "I am Azariah," the guide replies, "and this is Tobias, son of Tobit of Nineveh. We seek lodging for the night and the blessing of your hospitality." Raguel's expression changes to one of amazement and joy. "Son of Tobit? My own kinsman? Come in, come in. You honor my household beyond measure." He ushers them into a courtyard where a fountain plays among potted flowers. Oil lamps begin to twinkle as servants light them against the gathering darkness. The sound of women's voices carries from inner rooms where the evening meal is being prepared. "Edna, my wife," Raguel calls, "come and meet our blessed guests." A gracious woman emerges from the house, her face radiant with the kind of beauty that comes from years of goodness rather than mere youth. She wears simple but elegant robes and moves with the dignity of a woman secure in her husband's love. "Welcome to our home," she says, embracing Tobias with motherly warmth. Any son of Tobit is doubly welcome here, for his reputation reaches even to our mountain city. They usher the travelers to cushioned seats around a low table. Servants bring basins of warm water for washing hands and feet. The hospitality flows as naturally as water from a spring, requiring no effort because it springs from generous hearts. "Tell us of your father," Ruguel requests. How does good Tobit fare in these troubled times? Tobias relates his father's recent trials, the blindness that came upon him, the poverty that followed, the faith that sustains him through each dark day. His words paint a picture of a righteous man tested but not defeated. Blindness, Edna murmurs sadly. Such a terrible burden for one who has served the Almighty so faithfully. Indeed, Ruguel agrees, but we must trust that divine justice will ultimately prevail. The Lord repays suffering with blessing in his perfect time. As they speak, a young woman enters the courtyard carrying a tray of fruit and wine. Tobias looks up and catches his breath. Never has he seen such beauty combined with such evident virtue. This must be Sarah, Ruguel's daughter. Her dark hair flows like silk around shoulders that carry themselves with quiet grace. Her eyes hold depths of wisdom and compassion that speak of a soul refined by trial. When she moves, it seems as though music accompanies her steps, yet something in her manner suggests hidden sorrow. Despite her gracious smile, sadness lurks behind her eyes like shadows in a sun-bright room. She serves the guests with perfect courtesy, but speaks little. "My daughter Sarah," Ruguel says with obvious pride and love. "She brings light to our household and joy to our hearts." Sarah curtsies politely but keeps her gaze lowered. Tobias notices how her hands tremble slightly as she pours wine into cups. Some burden weighs upon this beautiful young woman's spirit. Azariah watches the interaction with knowing eyes. "Sarah is blessed among women," he observes quietly. "Her reputation for virtue and wisdom reaches even to distant cities." "You are too kind," Sarah replies softly. "I am but my father's unworthy daughter, seeking to serve the Almighty faithfully, despite my many failings." Her humility touches Tobias's heart. Here lives a woman who possesses both outward beauty and inner goodness, a rare combination in any age. Yet why does sadness cloud her lovely features? The evening meal arrives in generous portions: roasted lamb seasoned with herbs, vegetables from the family garden, bread still warm from the oven, honey cakes that melt on the tongue. Everything tastes of love and careful preparation. As they eat, conversation flows easily between the men. Ruguel proves both intelligent and devout, asking thoughtful questions about conditions in Nineveh and sharing news from Ecbatana. His devotion to God shows in every word and gesture. Edna draws Tobias into discussion about his mother Anna, whom she remembers from their youth. The two women had been close friends before marriage, scattered the family to different cities. Her questions about Anna's health and happiness showed genuine concern. But Sarah remains largely silent, participating only when directly addressed. She eats little and excuses herself early, claiming household duties require her attention. "Forgive my daughter," Ruguel says after she leaves. "She carries burdens that would crush lesser souls, yet she bears them with such grace that visitors rarely guess her true situation." "What troubles her?" Tobias asks, his heart already drawn to this mysterious young woman. Ruguel exchanges glances with his wife before answering. "Sarah has been unfortunate in marriage. 7 times she has taken a husband. 7 times death has claimed him before dawn. Now she lives in seclusion, believing herself cursed." "7 husbands dead?" Tobias whispers in shock. "Each one found dead in the bridal chamber on their wedding night," Edna adds sadly. "No physician can explain it. No remedy brings prevention. Our beautiful daughter believes she brings doom to any man who loves her." Azariah listens to this tale with apparent calm, but something in his posture suggests he is not surprised by the revelation. His knowing eyes seem to see connections that others miss. "Perhaps," he says quietly, "Sarah's trials are nearing their end. The Almighty works in mysterious ways, often bringing deliverance when hope seems most distant." Ruguel sighs deeply. "We pray for such mercy daily, but what man would dare court a woman whose very presence brings death? What future awaits our beloved daughter?" The evening grows late. Servants prepare comfortable sleeping chambers for the guests, providing everything needed for rest and refreshment. But as Tobias settles onto his sleeping mat, his mind races with thoughts of the beautiful, tragic Sarah. Something tells him their meeting is no mere coincidence. In his pack rest the fish organs that Azariah claimed could drive away demons. Could these strange medicines somehow help the suffering daughter of his kinsman? Sleep comes slowly, filled with dreams of dark spirits and divine intervention, of love conquering supernatural opposition, of healing that goes far beyond mere physical sight. The binding of the demon knight settles over Ecbatana like a soft blanket, bringing peace to most households but terror to one. In her chamber, Sarah kneels in prayer, her heart heavy with familiar dread. Tomorrow, her father will likely suggest another marriage, another chance for happiness that can only end in death. 7 good men have died because of her cursed existence. 7 families mourn sons and brothers lost to supernatural malice. How can she bear the weight of one more grave, one more grieving mother, one more life cut short by demon rage? "O Lord," she whispers, tears streaming down her cheeks, "either free me from this torment or take me to yourself. I cannot endure watching more innocent blood spilled because of my accursed fate." Her prayer rises like incense toward heaven's throne, joining countless other petitions from suffering souls around the world. But tonight, something different stirs in the celestial realms. Tonight, divine intervention prepares to shatter chains forged in hell itself. In the guest chamber, Tobias lies wakeful, despite his exhaustion. The tragic story of Sarah's 7 dead husbands fills his thoughts with confusion and compassion. What evil force could be so cruel, so persistent in its destruction of human happiness? Azariah sits quietly by the window, gazing out at stars that shine like scattered diamonds across the mountain sky. His calm presence brings peace to the troubled young man. "Cannot sleep?" the guide asks softly. "I keep thinking about Sarah," Tobias admits. "Such beauty and virtue, yet such terrible sorrow follows her. Is there truly no hope for her deliverance?" "Hope exists even in the darkest situations," Azariah replies. "Sometimes deliverance comes through the most unexpected instruments." "What do you mean?" "The fish organs in your pack. Did you think they were meant only for your father's eyes? Divine providence rarely works with such narrow purpose." Tobias sits up suddenly, his heart beginning to race. "You believe those organs could help Sarah?" "I know they can," Azariah says with quiet certainty. "The heart and liver, when burned, produce smoke that binds demons and breaks curses. But courage is required to apply this remedy." "What kind of courage?" "The courage to love despite danger. The courage to trust heaven's protection when hell unleashes its fury. The courage to stand between evil and innocence, knowing that victory comes through faith rather than strength." These words echo in Tobias's mind like prophecy. Could it be that his entire journey, the strange meeting with Azariah, the encounter with the giant fish, the route through Ecbatana has been orchestrated for this very purpose? "Are you suggesting I should marry Sarah?" he asks, his voice barely above a whisper. "I am suggesting you pray for guidance," Azariah replies. "When morning comes, speak with Raguel about your feelings. If he consents and you have courage, the wedding could take place immediately." "But what about the demon? What if I die like the others?" "You will not die," his guide says with absolute confidence. "The fish organs will protect you, and prayer will complete your defense. Evil has ruled Sarah's life long enough. The time has come for righteousness to triumph." Dawn breaks slowly over the mountain city, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. Tobias rises early, his decision made during the long night hours. If God has brought him to this place for Sarah's deliverance, he will not shrink from the task. At breakfast, he watches Sarah serve the meal with her usual quiet grace. The sadness in her eyes breaks his heart, but underneath the sorrow he glimpses hope waiting to be reborn. She deserves love, deserves happiness, deserves freedom from supernatural oppression. "Raguel," he says when the meal concludes, "I wish to speak with you privately about a matter of great importance." They withdraw to a quiet corner of the courtyard where morning light filters through grapevines heavy with fruit. Raguel settles himself comfortably, clearly expecting discussion of business matters. "I desire to marry your daughter Sarah," Tobias announces without preamble. Raguel's face goes pale. He stares at the young man in shock and dismay. "My son," he says finally, "you do not understand what you ask. Sarah brings death to any man who takes her as wife. 7 have already died. I cannot bear to see an 8th grave dug." "I understand the danger," Tobias replies calmly, "but I also have faith that the Almighty has brought me here for this very purpose. He has provided protection against the evil that has plagued your daughter." What protection could possibly stand against such supernatural malice? Tobias explains about the fish organs and their demon-binding properties. He speaks of his growing love for Sarah, his certainty that divine providence has orchestrated their meeting. His words carry conviction that gradually penetrates Raguel's fear. "You would truly risk your life for my daughter's freedom?" the older man asks. "I would gladly give my life if it meant Sarah could find peace and happiness." Raguel considers this proposal for a long time, torn between hope and terror. Finally, he sighs deeply. "If you are determined and if you truly believe heaven protects you, I will not stand in your way. But we must prepare for the worst while praying for the best." The wedding takes place that very evening, conducted with simple ceremony but deep reverence. Sarah wears white robes that make her look like an angel descended from heaven. Tobias stands beside her, his heart full of love and determination. As night falls, servants prepare the bridal chamber with fresh flowers and burning lamps. But before Tobias enters, he carefully prepares the fish organs according to Azariah's instructions. He places the heart and liver on glowing coals, creating smoke that fills the room with strange, sweet fragrance. Then he kneels beside the bed and prays with fervent faith. "Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob," he whispers, "you know I take this woman not from lust, but from love. Grant that she and I may find mercy and grow old together in happiness and peace." Sarah adds her own prayer, tears of gratitude streaming down her face. "Blessed are you, O God, for you have shown mercy to two lonely people. Remove from us all evil and grant us long life together in your service." The smoke from the burning organs spreads throughout the chamber, carrying their prayers upward while driving evil downward. Somewhere in the darkness, a terrible shriek echoes as Asmodeus feels his power breaking like chains snapped by divine strength. The demon flees toward Egypt, his hold on Sarah finally shattered by love backed by heavenly authority. Never again will he torment the innocent young woman who has suffered so much for so long. That night, for the first time in years, Sarah sleeps peacefully in her husband's arms. No death visits their chamber. No evil disturbs their rest. Love has conquered hatred. Faith has defeated fear, and divine mercy has triumphed over supernatural malice. The nightmare that began with 7 graves ends with one wedding blessed by heaven itself. A night without fear. Peace settles over the bridal chamber like gentle rain after drought. For the first time in years, Sarah lies beside a living husband as dawn light creeps through the window shutters. Her heart, so long heavy with fear and guilt, feels light as a bird taking wing. Tobias sleeps quietly beside her, his breathing steady and calm. No supernatural terror has claimed his life. No demon has stolen their wedding joy. The fish organ's sacred smoke has driven away the evil that plagued her for so long. "Thank you," Sarah whispers toward heaven, tears of gratitude dampening her pillow. "Thank you for this miracle of deliverance." In the courtyard below, Raguel paces anxiously. Sleep eluded him throughout the night as he listened for sounds of disaster. Every creak of the house made him cringe, expecting to hear Sarah's familiar cry of anguish. But the house remains peaceful. No screams pierce the darkness. No supernatural wind rattles the doors. The oil lamps burn steadily without flickering from otherworldly presence. Edna joins her husband in the courtyard, her own face marked by sleepless worry. "Perhaps we should check on them," she suggests. "Not yet," Raguel replies. "Let us wait until full daylight. If evil intended to strike, it would have happened by now." They sit together on a stone bench, holding hands like young lovers, drawing comfort from shared hope. Neither dares speak their growing optimism aloud, fearing words might somehow break the spell of protection. As the sun climbs higher, household servants begin their daily tasks. They move quietly, respecting the momentous night that has passed. Everyone knows this morning will determine Sarah's fate, freedom or another funeral. Azariah appears in the courtyard, serene as always. His presence brings immediate comfort to the anxious parents. "Good morning," he says peacefully. "The Lord has blessed this house with his favor." "You speak as one who knows," Raguel observes hopefully. "Evil has fled," Azariah confirms. "The curse that bound your daughter has been broken forever. She is free to live and love without fear." These words release the tension that has gripped the household. Edna begins to weep with relief, while Raguel offers prayers of thanksgiving. The nightmare that began with 7 deaths has finally ended. Footsteps on the stairs announce someone descending from the upper rooms. Sarah appears, radiant with happiness that transforms her beauty into something almost celestial. Behind her comes Tobias, tired but triumphant. "My daughter," Edna cries, rushing to embrace the young bride. "You live. You are well." "Better than well," Sarah replies, her voice ringing with joy. "I am free, truly free, for the first time in years. The evil that haunted me has been banished forever." Raguel embraces his new son-in-law with tears in his eyes. "You have given us back our daughter's life. How can we ever repay such a gift?" "No payment is needed," Tobias answers. "Love requires no reward beyond itself." The household erupts in celebration. Servants prepare a feast while musicians are summoned to provide joyful songs. News spreads quickly through Ecbatana that Sarah's curse has been lifted, bringing relief to an entire community that had watched her suffer. Neighbors arrive to offer congratulations and witness the miracle with their own eyes. Many had written off Sarah as hopelessly cursed, doomed to live alone until death claimed her. Now they see her laughing with her husband, planning their future together like any normal couple. How was it accomplished? People ask in wonder. Tobias tells the story of the great fish and its mysterious organs, though he senses few truly understand the supernatural forces involved. They see only the results: a young woman freed from terrible bondage to find love and happiness. Throughout the celebration, Azariah remains quietly in the background. He accepts thanks graciously but deflects praise, insisting that divine providence deserves all credit for the night's victory. "You knew this would happen," Sarah says to him during a quiet moment. "When you first looked at me yesterday, you saw something others could not see." "I saw a faithful daughter of Abraham suffering unjustly," he replies. "I also saw that her deliverance was at hand. The Almighty never abandons his beloved children, though his timing often exceeds human understanding." The festivities continue throughout the day. Tables groan under the weight of food prepared for unexpected guests. Wine flows freely while musicians play songs of celebration. Children dance in the courtyard while their parents share stories and laughter. As evening approaches, Raguel takes Tobias aside for private conversation. "My son," he says, "you have brought such joy to our household that I can hardly express my gratitude. Please consider staying with us longer. Let us celebrate properly for at least a week." "I am honored by your invitation," Tobias replies, "but I must also remember my parents in Nineveh. They expect my return and worry about my safety." "Of course," Raguel nods, understanding. "Family duty comes first. When will you depart?" "Tomorrow morning," Tobias decides. "We have stayed longer than planned already, and the road home is long." That night, Sarah and Tobias retire to their chamber without fear. The evil that once made their room a place of terror has been transformed into a sanctuary of love. They speak quietly of their future together, making plans that seemed impossible just days before. "Will you be happy in Nineveh?" Tobias asks. "Leaving your family and homeland requires great sacrifice." "Home is wherever you are," Sarah replies simply. "Besides, I long to meet your parents and serve the family that raised such a good man." They fall asleep in each other's arms, surrounded by the peace that comes from victory over darkness. Outside their window, night settles gently over Ecbatana. Holding no more terrors for the house of Raguel, the demon Asmodeus prowls the distant deserts of Egypt, his power broken and his influence shattered. Never again will he trouble the innocent young woman through faith and courage. Love has conquered all. A blessing fulfilled. Morning light streams through the windows of Raguel's house like liquid gold, illuminating faces bright with joy and gratitude. The household awakens to their first day in years without the shadow of Sarah's curse hanging over them like a storm cloud. In the courtyard, servants prepare for another celebration. Though Tobias and Sarah plan to depart for Nineveh, Raguel insists on sending them away with proper ceremony and generous gifts. "My daughter has suffered too long," he tells his wife as they supervise the preparations. "Now that joy has returned to our house, we must celebrate as befits such a miracle." Edna nods agreement while directing servants to pack traveling supplies. Her heart aches at the thought of Sarah leaving, but joy outweighs sorrow. Better to lose a daughter to happiness than to keep her in misery. Tobias emerges from their chamber carrying his traveling pack, now heavier with the addition of Sarah's possessions. The precious fish organs remain safely wrapped, having served one miraculous purpose and destined for another. "Good morning, my son," Raguel greets him warmly. "Did you rest well?" Like a man with a clear conscience and a peaceful heart, Tobias replies. Your hospitality has blessed us beyond measure. Sarah appears moments later, dressed for travel but radiant with contentment. The transformation in her appearance amazes everyone who knew her before. Gone is the haunted look that shadowed her features. In its place shines the glow of a woman truly loved and truly free. Must you leave so soon? Edna pleads, embracing her daughter tenderly. We have had so little time to celebrate your deliverance. I will return to visit often, Sarah promises. But now my place is with my husband and his family. They have waited long enough for news of our success. Azariah appears in the courtyard, ready for travel as always. His calm presence has become such a comfort that no one questions his constant preparedness or mysterious knowledge. The road home awaits, he announces quietly. If we depart soon, we can reach the next town before evening. Raguel produces a leather pouch heavy with silver coins. For your journey, he insists, pressing it into Tobias's hands. And this is but the beginning of Sarah's dowry. When you return to visit, I will have prepared much more. Your generosity overwhelms us, Tobias protests. Nothing could repay what you have done for our family. Raguel replies firmly. You have given us back our daughter's life and hope for the future. Take what I offer with our boundless gratitude. The farewell ceremony extends through the morning as neighbors arrive to witness Sarah's departure. Many bring small gifts: bread for the journey, flowers for blessing, coins for prosperity. Each offering carries prayers for the young couple's happiness. An elderly woman who helped deliver Sarah as a baby approaches with tears in her eyes. I never thought I would live to see this day, she whispers. Blessed be the God who works such wonders among his people. Children from the neighborhood gather around Sarah, some too young to understand her story, but old enough to sense something special happening. She embraces each one, speaking gentle words of encouragement and blessing. Remember, she tells them, no matter how dark your troubles seem, the Almighty sees everything and will bring deliverance in his perfect time. Finally, the moment of departure arrives. The travelers shoulder their packs while servants load a cart with additional supplies and gifts. Raguel's generosity threatens to slow their journey, but love compels him to provide everything he can imagine they might need. Send word when you reach Nineveh safely, he pleads. Until that message arrives, our hearts will know no peace. I promise, Tobias assures him, and when we are settled, you must come visit us. My parents will welcome you as beloved family. The procession moves slowly through Ecbatana's winding streets. Word of their departure has spread, bringing curious onlookers to doorways and windows. Many call out blessings and good wishes for the journey. At the city gates, a final crowd gathers. Sarah's deliverance has become the talk of Ecbatana, inspiring hope in other families facing seemingly impossible difficulties. Her story will be told for generations as proof that no situation lies beyond divine intervention. Go in peace, the city elders proclaim. May the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob prosper your way and bring you safely to your destination. The great gates swing open, revealing the road that leads toward Nineveh and home. Tobias takes Sarah's hand as they step beyond the threshold, beginning their new life together as husband and wife. Behind them, Ecbatana gradually fades into the distance. Ahead lies adventure, reunion, and the joy of sharing their miracle with Tobias's parents. The fish organs that broke Sarah's curse now travel toward their second purpose, healing the blindness that has darkened Tobit's world. As they walk, Sarah marvels at the landscape around them. For years, her world had shrunk to the confines of her father's house. Now, endless possibilities stretch before her like the road itself. Tell me about your parents, she requests. What should I know to serve them properly? Tobias describes his father's righteousness and his mother's devotion, painting pictures of the family Sarah is about to join. His words reveal deep love and respect for the people who raised him with such wisdom and faith. They will adore you, he assures her. Your gentleness and virtue will bring light to our household. Azariah listens to their conversation with quiet satisfaction. His mysterious mission advances perfectly according to divine plan. Two prayers offered in desperation have received miraculous answers, but the greatest wonder still awaits their arrival in Nineveh. The sun climbs higher as they settle into the rhythm of travel. Sarah proves to be an excellent walking companion, neither complaining about difficulties nor lagging behind. Her years of sorrow have taught her endurance and patience. I feel as though I am awakening from a terrible dream, she confides to her husband. Everything seems brighter, more beautiful, more filled with possibility. That is what freedom feels like, Tobias replies. After years of bondage, even simple pleasures become profound joys. Their first day of married travel passes peacefully. No dangers threaten them, no obstacles impede their progress. Divine protection surrounds them like an invisible escort, ensuring safe passage toward their destination. That evening, as they rest at a roadside inn, Sarah offers prayers of thanksgiving for her deliverance and her new life. Her words rise like incense toward heaven, carrying the gratitude of a soul snatched from despair and restored to hope. Tomorrow will bring them closer to Nineveh, closer to the reunion that will complete their circle of miracles. Return to Nineveh. The morning sun painted golden paths across the desert as Tobias began his journey home. His heart carried new weight now, the weight of love, of purpose fulfilled, of silver secured for his father's needs. Beside him walked the faithful Azariah, whose quiet presence had become as natural as breathing. Sarah rode gently on a camel, her face no longer shadowed by fear. The curse that had claimed 7 husbands lay broken behind them, scattered like dust in the wind. She spoke softly with Tobias about the life they would build together, about the father-in-law she had yet to meet, about the home that awaited them in Nineveh. Raphael listened to their gentle conversations without intrusion. His disguise remained perfect, the helpful kinsman, the knowledgeable guide, the trusted friend. Yet beneath this human form, angelic awareness stretched across miles and years. He saw Tobit sitting in his courtyard, fingers tracing familiar walls, eyes clouded but heart hopeful. The old man counted days, wondered at his son's delay, whispered prayers into the evening air. The desert journey unfolded with different rhythms now. Where once urgency had driven them forward, contentment slowed their pace. They stopped at wells to water their animals and share simple meals. They rested in the shade of ancient trees, speaking of small things that somehow felt significant. Sarah learned about Tobit's kindness, his habit of burying the dead, his stubborn devotion to God despite hardship. Raphael guided them along safe paths, avoiding bandits and harsh weather without seeming to try. When sandstorms threatened, they found shelter. When water grew scarce, oases appeared just ahead. The angel's protection flowed around them like an invisible river, sustaining without announcing itself. Each evening brought star-filled skies and the soft sounds of desert night. Tobias and Sarah would sit close together, planning their future while Azariah tended the fire. The angel found joy in these quiet moments, young love speaking of simple hopes, dreams taking shape under ancient constellations. Here was humanity at its most beautiful, trusting, hopeful, grateful for small mercies. The silver they carried represented more than wealth. It symbolized provision, security, the ability to care for aging parents. Raphael understood money's role in human life, not as an end, but as a means to love more fully. The coins would ease Tobit's final years, ensure Sarah's welcome, provide for the children who might come. As they traveled, Sarah shared stories of her father Raguel, his wisdom and grief. She spoke of watching other girls marry and find happiness while her own life remained trapped in supernatural fear. The demon's shadow had touched everything, her prayers, her dreams, her hope for ordinary joy. Now that shadow had lifted and the world looked different. Colors seemed brighter, food tasted better, sleep came without nightmares. Tobias listened with the deep attention of new love. He asked gentle questions, offered comfort for old wounds, marveled at her strength. His own story unfolded gradually. Growing up with a blind father, learning righteousness through example, accepting responsibility despite youth. Neither had expected their lives to intertwine so dramatically, yet the connection felt inevitable now. The angel walked beside them, his staff steady against the ground, his gaze alert for dangers they never saw. Scorpions avoided their path. Wild animals watched from safe distances, but never approached. Water sources remained pure. Directions stayed clear. Divine protection worked through natural means, invisible yet absolute. Days blended into each other with desert sameness, yet each brought them closer to revelation. Raphael knew his time in disguise was ending. Soon Tobit would be healed, thanks given, truth revealed. The thought brought both joy and a strange sadness. He had grown fond of human conversation, of walking at human pace, of sharing simple meals and simple concerns. The landscape gradually changed as they approached Assyrian territories. Desert gave way to farmland, then to towns, finally to the familiar outskirts of Nineveh. Tobias recognized landmarks from childhood adventures. His excitement grew, tempered by concern for his father's condition. Would Tobit still be waiting? Would the blindness have worsened? Would their joy be complete or shadowed by loss? Sarah's nervousness increased as they neared journey's end. Meeting a beloved father-in-law while carrying the weight of her strange past required courage. Would Tobit accept her despite the demon's curse? Would he see past supernatural strangeness to the woman his son loved? Raphael offered quiet reassurance to both. The same God who had heard their prayers and sent deliverance would complete what he had begun. Healing awaited. Joy would follow sorrow. The angel's confidence flowed from divine knowledge, yet he expressed it through simple human words of comfort and encouragement. The city walls of Nineveh appeared on the horizon, massive and familiar. Home lay just ahead, along with answers, healing, and the moment when heaven would briefly touch earth through revealed truth. The healing of Tobit. Anna saw them first from the rooftop where she watched the roads each evening. Her cry of joy echoed through the narrow streets as she ran to tell her husband. Tobit rose from his chair with trembling hands, his sightless eyes turning toward the sound of approaching footsteps. Tobias embraced his father with fierce love, feeling the frailness that had grown during his absence. Tobit's hands explored his son's face, confirming reality through touch. Joy and relief mingled in the old man's voice as he spoke blessings and asked countless questions. Where had the journey led? Who was this woman? Had the silver been recovered? Sarah approached with gentle reverence, taking Tobit's weathered hands in hers. She spoke simply of her love for Tobias, her gratitude for his family's welcome, her hopes for their shared future. Tobit's face softened as she spoke. His blindness had taught him to hear hearts through voices, and Sarah's heart sang with sincerity. Azariah stood quietly aside, watching this reunion with deep satisfaction. The family's joy reflected heaven's own pleasure and answered prayer. Yet, greater healing waited. The fish's gall rested in Tobias's pack, its strange power still unrevealed to those who most needed it. As evening settled over the courtyard, Tobias remembered his mysterious companion's earlier instruction. The fish's gallbladder, carefully preserved since their encounter by the river, could heal his father's blindness. The memory seemed strange now. Why had Azariah known such an unusual remedy? Why had he insisted on saving organs that any normal traveler would have discarded? Doubt and hope wrestled in Tobias's mind as he prepared the remedy. His father had suffered blindness for years. Physicians had offered no solutions. Religious leaders could only counsel patience. Yet this simple fisherman's cure might succeed where wisdom had failed. The contradiction troubled him even as desperate love urged action. Tobit submitted to his son's ministrations with patient trust. If God chose to work through fish gall and loving hands, who was he to question the method? Years of darkness had taught him to accept mercy in whatever form it came. Sarah held the lamp steady while Tobias applied the strange medicine to his father's sealed eyes. The healing came gently at first, shadows where there had been none. Shapes moving in peripheral awareness, light penetrating where darkness had reigned absolute. Tobit gasped as vision returned gradually, like dawn breaking after endless night. The world reformed itself around him, faces he had touched but not seen, walls he had navigated by memory, the familiar courtyard that housed his prayers. Sarah's face appeared before him, beautiful and kind. His son's features had matured during the journey, bearing new confidence and purpose. Anna wept openly as her husband's eyes met hers for the first time in years. The miracle was quiet, natural, yet absolutely supernatural in its completeness. Raphael watched from his position near the gate, his disguise still intact, but his mission nearly complete. The healing accomplished God's direct will, answering years of faithful prayer. Tobit's righteousness had earned this restoration, yet grace exceeded merit in ways that humbled even angels. The celebration began spontaneously. Neighbors arrived as word spread through the quarter. Food appeared from nowhere as the community shared in one family's joy. Music filled the courtyard, simple songs of thanksgiving that rose like incense toward heaven. Children danced around the edges of adult conversations, adding their own delight to the general happiness. Tobit moved through his home with wonder, reacquainting himself with spaces his feet knew but his eyes had forgotten. Everything seemed smaller than memory suggested, yet more beautiful than imagination had preserved. Colors overwhelmed senses long deprived. Textures gained new meaning when sight confirmed touch. Sarah helped Anna prepare feast foods while the men talked late into the night. The silver Tobias had recovered would provide security, but this healing provided something beyond price. Tobit could read again, could see his daughter-in-law's face, could watch grandchildren when they came. Independence returned along with sight. As the evening wound toward its close, Tobias sought private conversation with Azariah. Questions pressed against his understanding. How had this simple kinsman known about the fish's healing power? Why had every danger on their journey been avoided so easily? What wisdom guided such confident decisions? The angel's eyes held depths that seemed impossible in an ordinary man. His smile carried knowledge that stretched beyond human experience, yet his words remained carefully ordinary, deflecting questions with gentle humor and practical concerns. Soon the moment of revelation would come. Truth would replace mystery. Heaven would briefly show its face before withdrawing again behind the veil of ordinary days. But for now, the healing itself was enough. Sight restored, family reunited, prayers answered in ways that exceeded hope. Raphael reveals himself. Morning brought new light to Tobit's healed eyes, and with it came questions that could no longer wait. The silver lay counted and secure. Sarah had found her place in the household. The demon's curse belonged to the past, yet mystery surrounded their benefactor like morning mist around a mountain. Tobias and Tobit approached Azariah together, carrying a purse heavy with coins. Gratitude demanded payment for services beyond measure. Their guide had protected the journey, enabled the marriage, facilitated the healing. No ordinary wage could match such gifts, yet love required the attempt. Azariah stood in the courtyard where morning sun painted shadows against the walls. His form seemed somehow different in this light, taller perhaps, or bearing authority that human appearance had previously concealed. When he smiled, it was with knowledge that stretched beyond mortal understanding. The family gathered as Tobit spoke their gratitude. Words tumbled over each other in the attempt to express the inexpressible. How could human language contain appreciation for sight restored, curses broken, love enabled? The silver they offered represented their entire fortune, yet seemed pitifully small against the magnitude of received blessing. Azariah raised his hand gently, declining their payment with grace that somehow elevated rather than diminished their offering. His voice carried new resonance as he began to speak truth that would shatter their understanding of recent events. I am Raphael, one of the 7 holy angels who present the prayers of the saints before the glory of the Holy One. The words fell into silence deeper than death. Time seemed suspended as human minds struggled to grasp impossible reality. An angel. Not a kinsman, not a guide, not even a prophet, but one of heaven's own messengers walking among them in borrowed flesh. Tobit fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the presence he had unknowingly entertained. Sarah covered her face, unable to look upon revealed divinity. Tobias stood frozen between wonder and terror, his mind reeling with implications that expanded like ripples in still water. The angel's form began to shimmer, humanity falling away like discarded clothing. Light emanated from within rather than reflecting from without. Wings unfurled, not the feathered appendages of artistic imagination, but something more like crystallized air, like captured starlight given form and function. Do not fear, Raphael spoke, and his voice carried harmonies impossible for human throats. When you were praying and weeping, when you buried the dead, when you left your dinner to go and hide a corpse, I was recording your deeds before the Lord. When you did not hesitate to rise and leave your feast to go and bury that dead man lying in the street, you were doing something beautiful. The angel's words revealed hidden witnesses to private righteousness. Every act of mercy, every moment of sacrifice, every prayer whispered in darkness had been observed and recorded by heaven itself. Divine attention had followed Tobit's faithful service long before obvious blessing appeared. God sent me to test you, and at the same time to heal you and your daughter-in-law, Sarah. I am Raphael, one of the 7 angels who stand and serve before God. The revelation explained everything while explaining nothing. Why had God chosen this method? Why the disguise, the journey, the gradual unfolding of blessing? Divine purposes moved in patterns beyond human comprehension, yet always toward love's ultimate expression. Raphael's presence filled the courtyard with otherworldly peace. Fear gave way to awe, terror transformed into worship. This was not the terrible judgment of apocalyptic visions, but love made visible, grace given form and voice. Do not be afraid, peace be with you. Bless God forever. As for me, when I was with you, I was not acting on my own will, but by the will of God. Bless him each and every day, sing his praises. The angel began to fade as revelation reached completion. His mission was finished, his disguise no longer necessary. The family had received healing, blessing, understanding. Heaven's brief invasion of earth was drawing to its close. Although you saw me eat and drink, I did not really eat or drink anything. It was vision you saw. Even their shared meals had been divine accommodation, reality bent to serve love's purposes. The angel had participated in human life without being diminished by human limitations. Incarnation without corruption, presence without compromise. Now give thanks to God, for I am ascending to him who sent me. Light engulfed the courtyard as Raphael's form dissolved into radiance too bright for human eyes. The family fell prostrate, overwhelmed by glory, their spirits recognized, even as their minds struggled to process the experience. When they finally raised their heads, they were alone. Yet not alone, for they had been touched by heaven, God, blessed by divinity, changed forever by the knowledge that angels walk among mortals with healing in their wings. Raphael's role explained. Silence stretched across the courtyard like a blanket after thunder. The family remained on their knees, afraid to move, afraid to break the sacred spell that lingered in the air. Where Raphael had stood, only morning sunlight remained, yet everything had changed. Tobit was the first to find his voice, though it trembled with awe and joy. The words came slowly at first, then rushed like water through a broken dam. Praise and thanksgiving poured from his heart in waves that seemed to come from depths he hadn't known existed. Blessed be God who lives forever, he began, his newly healed eyes bright with tears. His kingdom lasts throughout all ages. He disciplines and shows mercy. He leads down to the depths of Hades and brings up from the great destruction. Guard it, nothing can escape his hand. The psalm continued, gathering strength as understanding dawned. God had not forgotten his faithful servant. The years of blindness, the struggles with poverty, the dangers of exile, all had been steps in a larger dance, movements in a symphony only heaven could compose. Sarah listened in wonder as her father-in-law's voice grew stronger. The same God who had sent Raphael to heal Tobit's eyes had sent him to break her curse. The same love that restored sight had restored hope. Their separate stories were really one story, their individual prayers part of a greater chorus that reached the throne of grace. Tobias felt his understanding expanding like morning light. Every moment of the journey took on new meaning. Azariah's uncanny knowledge of dangerous paths now made perfect sense. His confidence in the face of demons and difficulties reflected heavenly authority, not human courage. The fish and its healing organs had been orchestrated by divine wisdom that saw endings from beginnings. The angel's role became clearer as they talked together. Raphael was more than a messenger. He was an agent of healing, a minister of restoration, a bridge between heaven and earth. His very name meant God heals, and every action had flowed from that essential nature. In Jewish tradition, Raphael stood among the highest ranks of angels. The Book of Enoch, familiar to many faithful families, described him as one of 4 archangels who never sleep, who stand guard over the throne of the Almighty. Michael commanded heaven's armies, Gabriel delivered crucial messages, Uriel brought divine judgment, and Raphael brought healing to a broken world. The fish that had attacked Tobias by the river now revealed its true purpose. Raphael had orchestrated even that frightening moment, turning apparent danger into the instrument of future blessing. The demon repelling smoke from its heart, the sight restoring gall from its liver, these were not accidents but provisions prepared by divine foresight. Sarah's 7 dead husbands made terrible sense now. The demon Asmodeus had been permitted to test her, to build pressure that would eventually require heavenly intervention. Her suffering had not been meaningless, but had created the conditions for Raphael's mission, for God's glory to be revealed through supernatural deliverance. Even the silver that had prompted the original journey served purposes beyond payment of debts. It had provided the excuse for travel, the reason for seeking a kinsman's help, the framework within which divine comedy could unfold. Money had been important, but relationship was paramount. Tobit began to understand his own role differently. His acts of mercy, burying the dead despite danger, caring for the poor despite poverty, maintaining faith despite suffering, had not been his own righteous works, but responses to divine prompting. God had been preparing him for blessing by shaping his character through trial. The angel's presence in their home for these past days took on new significance. Heaven had literally dwelt among them, shared their meals, listened to their conversations, participated in their lives. The boundary between earthly and heavenly existence was thinner than they had ever imagined. Raphael's revelation changed everything and nothing. The love remained the same. The healing stayed complete. The family's joy continued undimmed. But now they understood the love's source, the healing's true physician, the joy's ultimate foundation. What they had attributed to good fortune or human kindness was actually divine intervention, love taking concrete form in their concrete lives. As the morning advanced, neighbors began arriving with questions. Word of Tobit's healing had spread quickly through their quarter of the city. How had blindness been cured so suddenly? What physician had accomplished such a miracle? The family exchanged glances, wondering how to explain what they themselves barely understood. The story they told was simple and true. An angel of God had walked among them, disguised as a man, had guided their son's journey, had facilitated healing through ordinary means employed for extraordinary purposes. Some listeners nodded with ready faith. Others struggled with possibilities that stretched credibility. But the evidence stood before them, in Tobit's bright eyes, in Sarah's peaceful face, in the family's obvious joy. Whatever the explanation, transformation was undeniable. Suffering had become blessing. Separation had become unity. Despair had become hope. Raphael in tradition. The sun reached its zenith as word of the angel's appearance spread beyond the neighborhood into the wider community of exiles. Scholars and teachers arrived to hear the account firsthand, to examine the details, to place this extraordinary event within the framework of their understanding. Rabbi after rabbi listened to Tobit's careful recounting of recent events. The journey, the fish, the marriage, the demon, the healing, each element was examined and discussed with the careful attention their tradition gave to matters of divine significance. Questions arose, debates followed, interpretations multiplied. Some recalled the ancient patriarch Jacob wrestling with an angel at Peniel, receiving both blessing and a permanent limp from the encounter. Others mentioned Abraham entertaining 3 mysterious visitors who brought news of Isaac's coming birth. The pattern was familiar. Heaven occasionally intersected earth through beings who appeared human, but carried divine authority. The Book of Enoch, treasured by many in their community, spoke extensively of Raphael's role among the archangels. There he was described as the angel who heals the diseases of men, who stands ready to serve before the throne of glory. Tobit's experience aligned perfectly with these earlier revelations, confirming rather than contradicting established understanding. Sarah's deliverance from demonic oppression reminded the teachers of Solomon's wisdom in binding evil spirits, of David's music driving darkness from Saul's troubled mind. The spiritual realm contained both beneficial and harmful forces, and God's angels served as protectors against supernatural evil that human strength could not resist. The healing fish presented particular fascination to those familiar with ancient medicine. While physicians knew nothing of gallbladders restoring sight, they recognized divine prerogative to work through natural means. The same God who created medicinal plants could certainly empower animal organs with healing properties when miraculous intervention was required. Young scribes took careful notes as elders discussed Raphael's place in angelic hierarchy. Michael the warrior, Gabriel the messenger, Uriel the flame of God, and Raphael the healer, four faces of divine service, four aspects of heavenly ministry to human need. Each archangel embodied particular attributes of God's character, making abstract theology concrete through personal encounter. The tradition recognized angels as active participants in earthly affairs rather than distant observers. They delivered messages, executed judgments, provided protection, offered guidance. Raphael's involvement in Tobias's journey fit naturally within this understanding of ongoing divine intervention in human history. Some teachers pointed to prophetic literature that spoke of angels ascending and descending on ladders between heaven and earth. Jacob's dream at Bethel had revealed constant traffic between realms, celestial beings moving in service to divine purposes that spanned both temporal and eternal dimensions. The disguise Raphael had maintained sparked particularly intense discussion. Could angels truly appear human, or had the family somehow misperceived his nature? The consensus leaned toward genuine incarnation, divine beings taking temporary physical form when mission required it. The alternative suggested human inability to recognize spiritual reality, a limitation the faithful were reluctant to accept. Women gathered separately to discuss Sarah's experience with demonic oppression. Her story resonated with mothers and daughters who had faced their own battles against forces that seemed beyond natural explanation. Depression, anxiety, inexplicable fears, perhaps these too could be understood as spiritual warfare requiring heavenly intervention. The marriage customs surrounding Sarah's deliverance received careful attention from those responsible for arranging unions within their community. Could demon activity actually interfere with human relationships? Should families seek divine protection more actively when children prepared for marriage? Practical implications flowed naturally from theological understanding. Evening brought larger gatherings as news continued spreading. Tobit found himself repeating his story again and again, each telling revealing new details, each audience discovering fresh significance in familiar elements. The healing of his blindness was miracle enough, but the revelation of angelic presence elevated the entire experience to a different category. Children listened with wide eyes to accounts of the mysterious fish, the hidden demon, the angel in disguise. Their imaginations caught fire with possibilities their parents approached more cautiously. Perhaps angels walked among them still, disguised as ordinary people, working quiet miracles in response to faithful prayers. The silver that had motivated the original journey was almost forgotten in light of greater treasures received. Financial security mattered, but spiritual encounter with divinity transcended monetary concerns. The family had sought earthly provision and received heavenly visitation instead. Some visitors brought their own stories of unexplained help, mysterious guidance, narrow escapes from danger. Had angels been involved in their experiences too? The boundary between natural and supernatural began to blur as testimony piled upon testimony, creating a picture of divine activity more extensive than most had previously imagined. Tobit encouraged such reflection without claiming unique privilege. The same God who had sent Raphael to his family remained active in all their lives. Angels continued their service, healing continued its work, prayers continued receiving answers. His story was exceptional in its dramatic revelation, but typical in its demonstration of ongoing divine care. The morning brought physicians to Tobit's door. Learned men who had heard impossible claims about blindness cured by fish organs. They came with skepticism and stayed with wonder, examining eyes that should not have seen, questioning a patient who should not have been healed. Doctor after doctor studied Tobit's restored vision with growing amazement. The cataracts that had sealed his sight were completely gone, leaving no trace of their former presence. The eyes themselves appeared younger than their years, bright and clear as those of a man decades junior. Medical knowledge offered no explanation for such complete restoration. The fish's gallbladder became a subject of intense scrutiny. Physicians knew the organ's function in digestion, but had never considered its healing properties. They requested samples from similar fish, conducting careful experiments that yielded disappointing results. Whatever power had worked through Raphael's prescription seemed unavailable to ordinary medical practice. Sarah's case proved equally puzzling to those trained in healing arts. The psychological trauma that had marked her features for years had vanished completely, leaving behind a peaceful countenance that radiated contentment. Her sleep came easily now, her dreams were pleasant, her appetite had returned. The transformation extended far beyond mere emotional recovery. Ancient medical texts were consulted for references to similar healings. Egyptian scrolls mentioned fish-based remedies, but nothing approaching the dramatic results witnessed in Tobit's case. Greek physicians had cataloged numerous treatments for blindness, yet none claimed the instantaneous success that characterized this supernatural intervention. The physicians found themselves confronting limitations in their understanding of health and disease. If blindness could be cured through methods outside their training, what other possibilities existed beyond their knowledge? The encounter with Raphael's healing humbled their professional confidence while expanding their sense of medicine's potential scope. Young medical students gathered to hear Tobit describe the healing process in detail. The application of the fish's gall had been simple, requiring no special technique or extended treatment. Pain had been minimal, recovery immediate, results complete. Such simplicity challenged complex theories that dominated their education. The connection between spiritual and physical healing became a topic of heated debate among the medical community. Could faith itself possess therapeutic properties? Did prayer contribute measurably to recovery rates? Raphael's intervention suggested dimensions of healing that purely physical approaches could not access. Some physicians began incorporating prayer into their practice, acknowledging divine partnership in the healing arts. Others maintained strict separation between religious and medical concerns, preferring to limit their work to observable phenomena. The divide reflected broader tensions within their exile community between traditional faith and acquired learning. Tobit encouraged the doctor's questions while gently directing credit toward its proper source. Raphael had been the true physician, working through natural means to accomplish supernatural ends. Human medicine served important purposes, but divine healing remained the ultimate restoration for bodies broken by sin and time. The fish itself became somewhat legendary among Nineveh's medical practitioners. Market vendors reported increased demand for similar species, though none seemed to possess the remarkable properties that had characterized Tobias's catch. The lesson was clear. God's healing worked through whatever instruments he chose, not through substances possessed of independent power. Sarah shared her experience with women who suffered similar spiritual oppression. Her advice was practical yet spiritual. Seek prayer alongside medical treatment. Trust divine timing while pursuing available remedies. Remember that healing often came through natural processes guided by supernatural wisdom. The demon's defeat had medical implications that physicians struggled to categorize. Mental distress, physical symptoms, relational difficulties, all had vanished simultaneously when spiritual bondage was broken. Their training offered no framework for understanding such comprehensive transformation accomplished through exorcism rather than medication. Children in the community began playing games that involved healing fish and angel doctors. Their innocent imagination grasped truths that learned adults found difficult to accept. Perhaps divine healing was as natural as their play suggested, as available as their faith could encompass. Tobit's restored sight became a symbol of hope for others facing incurable conditions. If God could cure blindness through fish gall and angelic guidance, perhaps cancer, palsy, madness, and countless other ailments were not beyond divine reach. The specific miracle pointed toward unlimited healing potential when heaven chose to intervene. The physicians eventually departed, carrying questions rather than answers back to their practices. Some would seek integration between their medical training and expanded understanding of healing's possibilities. Others would file the experience away as an interesting anomaly outside their professional concerns. But Tobit continued seeing clearly. Sarah remained free from demonic oppression, and their testimony to Raphael's healing power spread far beyond medical circles. The angel who bore the name God Heals had demonstrated his nature through concrete restoration that no human physician could duplicate or explain away. Raphael in Apocrypha and legend scribes arrived from distant cities carrying scrolls and tablets containing fragments of angelic lore collected over generations of faithful study. Tobit's encounter with Raphael had awakened scholarly interest in texts that lay outside the official canon, but preserved ancient wisdom about heaven's messengers. The Book of Enoch received particular attention during these discussions. Its detailed descriptions of Raphael's role among the archangels aligned perfectly with the healing angel's recent manifestation. There he was called one of the holy angels who takes vengeance on the world of the luminaries, responsible for both healing and judgment according to divine will. Another text described Raphael binding the demon Azazel in the wilderness, casting him into darkness for leading humanity into sin. Sarah's deliverance from Asmodeus echoed this ancient victory, suggesting ongoing warfare between angelic forces and demonic powers that threatened human welfare. The Testament of Solomon, familiar to some in their community, detailed how angels could be invoked to counter specific demons and diseases. Raphael appeared throughout these accounts as the primary heavenly physician, the angel most concerned with restoring what sin and evil had broken in human experience. Greek texts spoke of a healing spring associated with Raphael's ministry, where the angel stirred waters to grant therapeutic properties. Similar stories emerged from Egyptian sources, suggesting widespread ancient recognition of his medical role across various cultures and geographic regions. Jewish folklore preserved stories of Raphael teaching Noah the medicinal properties of plants after the flood, ensuring that healing knowledge would survive into the New World. The angel allegedly revealed which herbs could cure diseases, which roots could strengthen the body, which combinations would restore health most effectively. Some traditions claimed Raphael had taught the arts of medicine to human physicians, serving as the original source of healing knowledge. His intervention in Tobit's case was not unusual, but typical of ongoing ministry that had always characterized his service to suffering humanity. The apocryphal Acts of Thomas described Raphael appearing to early Christian communities, continuing his healing work among those who followed Christ. These accounts suggested no division between Jewish and Christian understanding of angelic ministry. The same heavenly beings served all who called upon their God for help. Aramaic incantation bowls discovered by archaeologists bore Raphael's name in formulas designed to ward off demons and disease. The angel's reputation as a protector against supernatural evil had clearly spread throughout the region, transcending religious and cultural boundaries. Islamic traditions, which some scholars in their community had encountered through trade relationships, also honored Raphael, called Israfil, as an angel of healing and resurrection. The consistency across religious boundaries suggested divine truth that no single community could claim exclusively. Mystical Jewish texts described Raphael as the angel who stood guard over the tree of life in Eden, preventing access until proper time for restoration arrived. His healing ministry was thus connected to humanity's ultimate destiny, complete renewal that would reverse all effects of the fall. The Sefer Raziel, known to students of divine mysteries, contained detailed instructions for invoking Raphael's aid in cases of serious illness. While Tobit had received unsolicited angelic intervention, the text suggested that faithful prayer could actively request such help when circumstances warranted it. Christian Apocrypha told of Raphael's role in the resurrection, participating in the general restoration that would characterize the end times. His healing ministry was not limited to temporal improvements, but extended toward eternal renewal that awaited all creation. Local legends from various regions described encounters with mysterious physicians who appeared during times of plague or epidemic, working miraculous cures before disappearing without seeking payment or recognition. These stories often concluded with speculation that Raphael had been at work among suffering communities. The proliferation of such accounts suggested either widespread angelic activity or widespread human tendency to attribute unexplained healing to supernatural sources. Either possibility reinforced faith in divine concern for physical well-being alongside spiritual salvation. Tobit listened to these scholarly discussions with growing appreciation for the broader context of his experience. Rather than feeling uniquely chosen, he began to understand his family's blessing as part of ancient patterns of divine mercy that had touched countless lives across many generations. Sarah found comfort in stories of other women who had received angelic help during times of desperate need. Her deliverance from demonic oppression was not unprecedented, but joined a long history of heavenly intervention on behalf of those whom evil had targeted for destruction. The texts and legends painted Raphael as consistently gentle in his ministry, never coercive or frightening, always respectful of human dignity while wielding supernatural power. His recent manifestation had perfectly matched this traditional portrayal, confirming rather than contradicting established expectations. As evening fell and the scholars prepared to depart, Tobit offered simple wisdom that transcended learned speculation. Whatever texts might say, whatever legends might claim, he had personally encountered the healing angel and found him faithful, kind, and utterly devoted to God's purposes in human lives. Raphael and the End of Days. The elderly prophet arrived at dawn, his staff tapping against cobblestones as he made his way to Tobit's door. Word of the angelic visitation had reached him in distant Babylon, compelling a journey that his aging body could barely endure. But visions had disturbed his sleep, showing connections between Raphael's recent appearance and events yet to unfold. Ezra spoke with authority earned through decades of studying prophetic literature. The same texts that described angels' current ministry also revealed their roles in the final days when heaven would invade earth permanently. Raphael's healing work was not confined to individual cases, but pointed toward universal restoration that would characterize God's ultimate victory. The Book of Enoch, which the prophet had studied extensively, described Raphael's function in the coming judgment. While Michael would lead heaven's armies and Gabriel would announce divine decrees, Raphael would heal the earth itself from centuries of corruption and violence. His ministry would expand from personal restoration to cosmic renewal. Daniel's visions, familiar to many in their exile community, spoke of resurrection when the dead would rise to eternal life. Raphael's role as the healing angel suggested his participation in that ultimate restoration, raising bodies from decay and renewing them for everlasting existence. The prophet's own dreams had shown him glimpses of renewed creation where disease no longer existed, where death held no power, where the effects of humanity's rebellion against God were completely reversed. Raphael stood at the center of these visions, his healing touch extending to all creation. Isaiah's prophecies promised a time when eyes of the blind would be opened and ears of the deaf unstopped. Tobit's restored sight served as a foretaste of that coming day, when all handicaps would vanish, all suffering would end. All bodies would be made perfect according to their Creator's original design. The healing of Sarah from demonic oppression pointed toward the final binding of Satan himself, when evil would be removed permanently from creation. The demon Asmodeus represented forces that would ultimately be defeated, cast into outer darkness where they could never again torment God's people. Ezekiel's vision of dry bones reassembling into living armies resonated with Raphael's healing ministry. The angel who restored Tobit's sight would participate in the greater restoration when all who had died in faith would rise with renewed bodies, perfected beyond their earthly limitations. The prophet described apocalyptic literature that portrayed Raphael wielding not just healing power, but divine authority over the elements themselves. In the final days, he would purify poisoned waters, restore barren lands, and reverse environmental damage caused by human sin and demonic influence. Some texts suggested that Raphael was heaven's physician during the tribulation period, healing those who remained faithful while plagues devastated the rebellious. His protective ministry would expand to shield entire communities from supernatural judgment, just as he had protected Tobias from demonic attack. The marriage between Tobias and Sarah took on prophetic significance in this eschatological context. Their union, blessed and protected by angelic intervention, symbolized the coming marriage between Christ and his church, when heaven and earth would be joined permanently in divine love. Tobit listened with growing awe as connections emerged between his personal experience and cosmic destiny. The same angel who had walked disguised through his courtyard would someday reveal himself to all creation, his healing light, illuminating the new heaven and new earth. The fish that had provided healing organs represented creation itself being transformed into instruments of restoration. In the final days, all nature would serve redemptive purposes as God reversed the curse that had subjected creation to futility and decay. Sarah's freedom from the demon's curse paralleled humanity's coming liberation from Satan's dominion. The 7 husbands who had died represented incomplete attempts at spiritual union that would be fulfilled when God's people were finally united with their divine bridegroom. The silver that had motivated the original journey symbolized earthly concerns that would pass away when heavenly realities became fully manifest. Raphael's dismissal of monetary payment pointed toward a coming economy based on love rather than exchange, gift rather than wages. The prophet's voice grew stronger as he described the final healing when death itself would be destroyed. Raphael's ministry would reach its ultimate expression when the last tear was wiped away, the last pain eliminated, the last separation ended forever. Some manuscripts spoke of Raphael's role in the general resurrection, his healing touch awakening the righteous dead to eternal life. The same power that had restored Tobit's sight would restore all creation to its intended glory, completing what redemption had begun. The disguise Raphael had maintained during his earthly mission reflected the hiddenness of God's kingdom in the present age. But in the final days, all disguises would be dropped, all mysteries revealed, all glory displayed without concealment or diminishment. As the prophet prepared to depart, he left Tobit with words of comfort and challenge. The healing they had received was both gift and responsibility, evidence of divine love that demanded faithful witness to those still waiting for their own restoration. The end times were not distant abstractions, but present realities breaking into ordinary life through angelic ministry. Raphael's visit proved that heaven was closer than most imagined, that divine intervention remained active in human affairs, that ultimate healing was not merely hoped for, but already begun. Night fell over Nineveh as the prophet's words echoed in the courtyard. Tobit's healed eyes turned toward stars that seemed brighter than before, knowing that someday even they would pale before the glory of renewed creation when Raphael's healing ministry reached its final, perfect expression. The quiet guardian dawn brought ordinary sounds to Tobit's household: Sarah grinding grain, Anna feeding chickens, Tobias preparing for daily work. Life had returned to familiar rhythms since Raphael's departure, yet everything felt different now. The angel's presence had departed visibly, but his protection remained like breath in the air. Tobias noticed it first during his walks through Nineveh's markets. Dangers that should have threatened seemed to avoid him entirely. Thieves turned away without apparent reason. Dishonest merchants found themselves offering fair prices. Guards who normally harassed foreigners nodded respectfully instead. Invisible shields surrounded him with safety he could feel, but not explain. Sarah experienced similar protection in her daily routines. The well where women gathered each morning had previously buzzed with gossip and rivalry. Now conversations turned gentle when she approached. Hostile neighbors discovered unexpected kindness in their hearts. Children who had mocked her past misfortunes brought small gifts instead. The family began recognizing patterns of divine care that had probably always existed, but gone unnoticed. Illness struck other households while theirs remained healthy. Crops failed for some farmers while Tobit's small garden flourished. Business ventures prospered despite economic uncertainty that troubled their neighbors. Yet the protection was subtle, never flashy or obvious. Raphael's continued ministry worked through natural circumstances rather than supernatural spectacle. Help came through human agents who seemed to act from their own impulses. Solutions appeared through apparently coincidental timing that felt perfectly orchestrated. Anna developed an eye for these quiet miracles. The unexpected visitor who arrived just when loneliness pressed too heavily. The neighbor child who offered help precisely when tasks became overwhelming. The merchant who forgot to collect payment for goods already delivered. Heaven's care flowed through earthly channels that preserved human dignity while meeting genuine needs. Tobit's blindness had taught him to recognize voices, footsteps, the subtle sounds that revealed approaching presence. Now, his restored sight was accompanied by enhanced spiritual sensitivity. He could sense angelic activity around him, not dramatically, but like awareness of gentle currents in still water. The silver from their journey multiplied through wise investments and unexpected opportunities. Business partnerships formed naturally, creating networks of mutual support that strengthened their entire community. What had begun as recovery of old debts became the foundation for ongoing prosperity that blessed many families. Sarah's peace radiated outward, touching other women who struggled with their own forms of spiritual oppression. Without speaking directly about demons or angels, she offered practical wisdom about finding rest for troubled hearts. Her quiet confidence became a source of healing for those who had lost hope. Children in the neighborhood were drawn to their household by something they could not name. Games played in their courtyard somehow became more joyful, conflicts resolved more easily, friendships formed more readily. The angel's blessing seemed to create safe space where innocence could flourish despite the harsh realities of exile. Tobias found his own capacity for helping others mysteriously expanded. Tasks that should have exhausted him left energy to spare. Problems that normally would have frustrated him resolved themselves through patient attention. His growing reputation for reliability and within wisdom brought opportunities to serve that felt like divine appointments. The family began to understand that Raphael's protection was not unique to them, but available to all who lived righteously and trusted God's care. Their dramatic encounter with the disguised angel had revealed ongoing ministry that touched countless lives in quieter ways. They were not specially chosen, but specially awakened to recognizing heaven's constant activity. Prayers took on new dimensions as they learned to ask for others what they had received themselves: healing for the sick, guidance for the confused, protection for the vulnerable. Their intercessions seemed to carry unusual power, as if angelic advocacy supported every request offered in faith. The demon that had tormented Sarah was gone, but they remained alert to spiritual warfare that continued around them. Other families faced similar battles with forces that sought to destroy marriages, corrupt children, steal hope. Their prayers created protective barriers that evil could not easily penetrate. Travel became safer for their friends and extended family. Word spread quietly that those who sought Tobit's blessing before journeys experienced unusual protection from bandits, wild animals, dangerous weather. The patriarch's touch seemed to carry something of Raphael's guardian presence to those who received it. Years passed with accumulating evidence of continued angelic care. What might have been attributed to good luck or natural blessing was understood now as supernatural protection working through ordinary means. Raphael guarded them still, though invisibly and without fanfare. The quiet guardian never again revealed himself directly, but his ministry continued unabated. Healing came through physicians whose skills seemed divinely enhanced. Guidance came through dreams and circumstances that pointed clearly toward right decisions. Provision came through opportunities that appeared exactly when needed. Other families began sharing their own stories of mysterious help, unexplained protection, timely interventions that had seemed merely fortunate but now appeared possibly angelic. The boundary between natural and supernatural blurred as awareness grew of heaven's ongoing involvement in earthly affairs. Tobit encouraged such recognition while warning against presumption. Angels served God's purposes, not human convenience. Their protection was real but not guaranteed, available but not automatic. Faith required trusting divine wisdom, even when circumstances seemed to contradict the promise of care. As evening shadows lengthened in the courtyard, the family often spoke together about Raphael's continuing presence. They could not see him, could not hear his voice, could not prove his activity to skeptics, but they knew with certainty that the healing angel walked beside them still, his quiet guardianship surrounding their lives with love that would never end. The gentle light evening comes softly to the city of Nineveh, painting the sky in gentle hues that speak of peace. In Tobit's courtyard, 3 generations gather as they have each night since the angel's visitation. The old man's eyes, bright with restored sight, reflect lamplight as he speaks quietly of the day's small mercies. Sarah rocks her infant son while Tobias tends the fire. Anna hums an ancient melody as she mends clothing worn soft by years of faithful service. The baby reaches tiny fingers toward dancing flames, seeing light that his grandfather had missed for so many years. Each ordinary moment carries the weight of miracle, the awareness that heaven touches earth in ways both dramatic and subtle. The healing that began with fish gall and angelic touch has rippled outward through their community like stones dropped in still water. Other families speak now of prayers answered, dangers avoided, hope restored. Whether through Raphael's continued ministry or simple awakening to divine care that was always present, blessing multiplies beyond counting. Tobias tells his son stories that the child cannot yet understand, but somehow absorbs through tone and rhythm. Tales of journeys across desert sands, of fish that held healing in their organs, of demons defeated by sacred smoke, of angels who walk among mortals wearing human faces. The baby listens with solemn attention, as if recognizing truth that transcends comprehension. In homes throughout Nineveh, similar conversations unfold as families gather in Lamplight's circle. Parents pass down accounts of divine intervention. Teachers explain the ways of angels. Children ask questions that reveal faith's simple clarity. Raphael's story has become their story. His healing has become their hope. The silver that funded the original journey has grown through blessed business ventures into security that extends beyond immediate family. Widows find unexpected provision. Orphans discover caring guardians. Travelers receive shelter without payment. Abundance flows from divine source through human hands that have learned to hold resources lightly. Sarah's freedom from demonic oppression has become testimony that strengthens other women facing their own spiritual battles. Without dramatic proclamation or public spectacle, she offers quiet counsel to wives whose marriages struggle, mothers whose children rebel, daughters whose futures seem clouded by mysterious fears. Her peace speaks louder than words about victory available to all who call upon heaven's help. The fish market where Tobias made his fateful catch continues daily business, but vendors now speak respectfully of creatures that swim in waters blessed by divine purpose. Children dare each other to catch healing fish, though none has yet discovered organs that restore sight or banish demons. The search itself has become prayer. The hope itself has become blessing. Physicians throughout the city report unusual success in their treatments since Raphael's manifestation. Remedies that previously failed now work with surprising effectiveness. Patients who should have died recover mysteriously. While they cannot prove angelic intervention, many have begun offering prayers alongside prescriptions, trusting partnership between earthly skill and heavenly power. The rabbis who examined Tobit's story have incorporated it into their teaching, using familiar example to illustrate eternal truths about divine care. Young students learn that angels remain active in human affairs, that prayers reach heaven's throne, that God's healing touches both body and soul. Scholarship and faith unite in testimony to Raphael's ministry. Tobit's vision has remained perfect through passing seasons, showing no sign of age-related decline despite advancing years. The healing was complete, permanent, supernatural in its thoroughness. Yet he uses restored sight primarily for simple pleasures, reading scripture, watching grandchildren play, seeing Sarah's smile, enjoying Anna's cooking arranged beautifully on humble plates. The courtyard where Raphael revealed his true nature has become sacred space without formal consecration. Neighbors bring their sick children to play where the angel stood, hoping proximity to holy ground might encourage healing. Couples planning marriage seek blessing where divine love was demonstrated through human wedding. Travelers pray for protection where heaven's guardian showed his concern. Night deepens over the city as conversations quiet and families prepare for rest. But in the darkness, unseen watchers maintain their posts. Angels continue their service, demons face ongoing defeat, prayers rise like incense toward the throne, where 7 spirits burn before crystal seas. The spiritual realm remains as active as ever, though mostly hidden from mortal sight. Raphael's story ends but never ends, concluded but continuing in lives touched by healing truth. The same God who sent his angel to Tobit's family remains present in every generation, working through natural means and supernatural intervention, according to perfect wisdom and unfailing love. The gentle light that emanated from Raphael's revealed form still shines in changed hearts, restored relationships, renewed hope. It flickers in oil lamps across Nineveh, glows in stars above the desert, burns eternally in the presence of him who sends his angels to minister to those who will inherit salvation. In the quiet courtyard, Tobit closes his eyes in prayer, thanking God for sight restored, for family blessed, for the angel whose name means healing. His words rise through evening air toward heaven, where Raphael stands ready to serve, to heal, to guard those who call upon the name of the Lord. The story continues in whispered prayers, in gentle healings, in quiet protections that surround the faithful like wings of light. Raphael's ministry extends beyond the written page into living testimony of divine love made manifest through angelic service. The healing angel watches still, ministers still, loves still. A gentle light in a world that waits for the dawn of eternal day, when all tears will be wiped away and every broken thing restored to wholeness. Peace settles over Nineveh as night completes its gentle conquest of day. In the darkness, light endures, not the fierce blaze of judgment, but the soft radiance of mercy, the tender glow of healing, the quiet illumination of hope that never fades. Raphael's story lives on in every heart that trusts in God's unfailing care, every prayer that seeks divine healing, every life that finds restoration through heavenly love. The gentle light shines on.